What if Sung Jinwoo woke up one day, only to find himself thrown 15 years back in time with all his memories and powers? Well, congratulations. You've basically got Seo Joo-Heon. The only difference is that instead of grinding dungeons, this guy is out robbing legendary tombs like they're having a clearance sale. Both start off as the weakest and end up becoming absolute monsters. The only twist? Joo-Heon has absolutely zero interest in playing the hero. He's here to outsmart everyone, steal every relic he can get his hands on, and make his enemies regret ever crossing him. So grab a snack, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into episodes 1 of Tomb Raider King. The episode opens inside a massive ancient tomb, where an eerie silence hangs in the air. The only sounds echoing through the enormous chamber are the heavy breaths of a lone survivor and the distant growls of a terrifying monster. The battlefield is nothing short of a nightmare. Blood covers the stone floor. Broken weapons are scattered everywhere. The lifeless bodies of Seo Joo-Heon's entire squad lie motionless throughout the boss room, serving as a grim reminder that this mission has already become a complete massacre. At the center of it all stands Seo Joo-Heon himself. His body is covered in countless wounds. Blood drips from every part of him. Barely able to stand, he struggles to catch his breath while facing a gigantic serpent-like monster that towers over him. Despite the brutal battle they have already fought, the monster looks almost completely unharmed. The enormous serpent lets out a deafening roar before lunging straight at Joo-Heon with terrifying speed. Even in his battered state, Joo-Heon's instincts remain razor-sharp. At the very last second, he leaps aside, narrowly avoiding the serpent's massive jaws. Using the monster's momentum against it, he lands directly on top of its enormous body and sprints toward its head. Without wasting a single moment, he swings his sword downward, aiming for a fatal strike. But just before the blade can connect, the serpent snaps its jaws shut. Its massive fangs clamp directly onto the sword, stopping the attack with nothing but its teeth. Joo-Heon grits his teeth and forcefully yanks the weapon free before quickly jumping back to create some distance. The moment his feet touch the ground, he dashes toward the nearby wall. Using it as a foothold, he kicks off the stone surface with all his remaining strength and launches himself like a missile toward the serpent. The monster charges at him at the exact same moment. For a split second, it looks as though the two attacks are about to collide head-on, but just before impact, the serpent suddenly whips its gigantic tail around. The devastating blow catches Joo-Heon in midair and hurls him across the chamber. His body crashes violently into the stone wall before he tumbles helplessly onto the floor. Before he can even recover, the serpent attacks again. Joo-Heon barely rolls out of the way in time, escaping certain death by only a few inches. The monster's head slams into the wall with tremendous force, becoming lodged in the stone for just a brief moment. Recognizing the tiny opening, Joo-Heon immediately charges forward. Channeling the last of his strength, he activates a lightning-based skill. Electricity crackles around his sword as he drives it directly into the serpent's skull. The blade pierces deep into its head. Determined to finish the battle, Joo-Heon desperately pushes the sword even farther, but his weapon has already reached its limit. With a loud crack, the blade shatters in his hands. Realizing the attack has failed, Joo-Heon immediately jumps away from the monster. Unfortunately, he isn't fast enough. The enraged serpent instantly catches him in its enormous jaws. Its razor-sharp teeth crush around his body with horrifying force. Even while trapped inside the monster's mouth, Joo-Heon refuses to give up. Still gripping the broken remains of his sword, with every ounce of strength he has left, he thrusts the shattered blade straight into the serpent's eye. The monster roars in agony. Furious, it violently throws Joo-Heon across the room before biting down even harder on his legs. A horrifying crunch echoes throughout the chamber. Joo-Heon screams in unbearable pain. His legs are completely mangled beyond recognition. As unimaginable agony overwhelms him, another painful memory surfaces inside his mind. He remembers his employer, Kwon Tae-joon, the very man who had sent him on this mission. The memory shifts back to the beginning of the expedition. Standing before his team, Kwon Tae-joon had given Joo-Heon a single order. This mission must succeed. If you accomplish it, the reward will be well worth your efforts. But that promise had turned out to be nothing more than empty words. Back in the present, inside the tomb, every single member of Joo-Heon's squad lies dead. Only he remains alive. Barely, with trembling hands, he reaches toward the broken sword lying nearby and slowly picks it up. He knows it's hopeless. His body is destroyed. His legs no longer function. The serpent still stands before him, almost completely unharmed. There is absolutely no chance he will leave this tomb alive. And yet, Joo-Heon suddenly starts laughing. His laughter echoes throughout the silent chamber. He grips the broken sword tightly and glares directly at the monster. "I'm not dying here like some coward." The serpent lets out another furious roar before charging toward him one final time. Seeing death rushing straight at him, Joo-Heon slowly closes his eyes. So, this is how I die, at 38. Just then, a mysterious voice suddenly echoes throughout the frozen tomb. What a pitiful man. Joo-Heon's eyes immediately snap open. Everything around him has stopped. The charging serpent, the dust floating through the air, even time itself appears completely frozen. The strange voice speaks again. So, you can actually hear me? Joo-Heon frowns. I've always been able to hear the voices of relics. Without hesitation, he looks around and shouts, I don't know what kind of divine relic you are, but if you're really here, kill that snake and get me out of this place. The mysterious voice bursts into laughter. You still think you can continue living? Only then does Joo-Heon glance down at his own body. His expression hardens. His legs, they're completely destroyed. The voice continues. Do you even realize how badly you're injured? Even if I eliminated that serpent, you wouldn't be able to walk out of here. A mocking chuckle follows. Or were you planning to crawl your way outside? The voice grows more serious. You've only survived this long because of sheer luck. How much longer do you think you'll last? That is the miserable end waiting for you. The mysterious being continues speaking. You possess talent, unlike anyone else. But you were born in the wrong era. You suffered your entire life. And now, you'll die before ever having the chance to fully use that incredible talent. Joo-Heon's expression darkens. You don't know a damn thing about me, and yet you keep talking like you do. He clenches his fists. I refuse to die like this. His voice becomes louder. Filled with pure hatred and determination, he shouts, no matter what it takes, I swear, I'll kill Kwon Tae-jun. The mysterious voice laughs once more. You truly are amusing. It would be such a waste to let talent like yours disappear. Suddenly, a brilliant golden light begins pouring down from the ceiling of the ancient tomb. The darkness is completely overwhelmed as radiant light floods the chamber. From within that golden glow, a crow slowly emerges. The mysterious bird hovers in front of the stunned Joo-Heon. I shall give you another chance. Its golden eyes lock onto him. Let's see whether you can truly claim the throne of the king this time. The instant those words leave its beak, the golden light erupts. It crashes into Joo-Heon's body like a bolt of divine lightning. His entire body is swallowed by blinding radiance. Then, everything goes black. A moment later, Joo-Heon slowly opens his eyes. He finds himself sitting somewhere completely different. Still confused by everything that just happened, he mutters to himself, I could have understood it if an eagle had shown up. But a crow? He scratches his head thoughtfully. At first glance, it looked like a hero-grade relic. But could it actually have been a god-grade relic? He immediately shakes his head. No, that can't be right. Then, something suddenly feels wrong. He slowly looks down at his body. His eyes widen in disbelief. Both of his legs are completely healed. Every wound that had covered his body has vanished without a trace. Unable to believe what he's seeing, Joo-Heon quickly stands up. There isn't even the slightest hint of pain. Completely bewildered, he hurriedly looks around to figure out where he is. Only then does he notice the familiar surroundings. Desks, chairs, police officers, holding cells. After taking in the room around him, one shocking realization dawns on him. He isn't inside the tomb anymore. He's sitting inside a police station. Still trying to process everything that had happened, Seo Joo-Heon suddenly heard an irritated voice beside him. What a strange man. A well-dressed woman sat nearby with a teenage boy standing behind her. She looked toward the police officers with an angry expression. Officer, would you please interrogate him properly? The officer sitting across from Joo-Heon sighed in frustration before tapping the desk. This is an interrogation. I've asked you for your name several times already, so why don't you just answer? Joo-Heon barely heard him. Instead, he silently looked around the room, completely confused by the situation unfolding before him. What is this? Is this the crow's doing? Am I dreaming? Or, is this some kind of illusion? The officer frowned even harder. What's wrong with you? Why won't you tell me your name? Another officer nearby stretched his arms with a tired sigh. Seriously, stuck working an interrogation at the very start of the new year. What a way to kick off 2025. The moment he heard that year, Joo-Heon's eyes widened. 2025? He immediately turned his head toward the calendar hanging on the wall. January 1st, 2025. His heartbeat stopped for a moment. No way. His mind raced. What happened? Was I reincarnated? He quickly shook his head. No, this isn't reincarnation. If it's really 2025, his pupils trembled. Then I've been sent, 15 years into the past. At that moment, the crow's final words echoed inside his mind. Let's see if you can truly claim the throne of the king this time. A slow smile spread across Joo-Heon's face. If he had truly returned 15 years before everything began, then countless possibilities had just opened before him. Seeing him smiling to himself only made the woman even angrier. Are you even listening? You won't answer the officer, and now you're smiling? Do you even understand what kind of situation you're in? Hearing her voice again, Joo-Heon finally looked directly at her. The instant he saw her face, then looked at the teenage boy standing behind her, his memories immediately came flooding back. He remembered this incident perfectly. 15 years ago, that very same boy had deliberately picked a fight with him. After provoking him over and over again, Joo-Heon had finally shoved him away. The boy had then dramatically collapsed onto the ground, almost as if he had been waiting for that exact moment. It had all been an act. Now, just like before, the woman angrily pointed at Joo-Heon. My son is only a high school senior. And yet this grown man assaulted him. Joo-Heon couldn't help but laugh internally. He remembered exactly how this situation had ended the first time around. Back then, they had demanded an absurd amount of settlement money. He hadn't been able to afford it. Desperate, he had even knelt before them, begging them to lower the amount. At the time, he had been completely broke. He had no choice. But that was 15 years ago. The woman noticed that Joo-Heon still wasn't paying attention to her accusations. Completely losing her temper, she suddenly raised her hand to slap him. However, before her hand could even reach him, Joo-Heon instantly caught her wrist. His grip was firm enough that she couldn't move another inch. He looked at her with complete indifference. That's enough. Your son was the one who started this. And besides, he glanced at her coldly. Don't you think you're asking for a ridiculous amount of settlement money? He smirked. They always say rich people are the greediest. And you're proving them right. The woman's face immediately turned bright red with anger. Before she could respond, her son rushed forward in a fit of rage. You bastard. He threw a punch straight at Joo-Heon. But to Joo-Heon, the attack looked painfully slow. With almost effortless movement, he sidestepped the punch. At the same time, he grabbed the teenager's arm. Using the boy's own momentum against him, Joo-Heon effortlessly flipped him over his shoulder. Bam! The teenager crashed hard onto the floor. Everyone inside the station froze. Joo-Heon looked down at his own hands. A lot lighter, his movements felt unbelievably smooth. His body responded exactly the way he wanted. So my suspicion was right. I haven't developed relic syndrome yet, but the combat skills I spent 15 years building, they're all still with me. Lying on the floor, the teenager glared at him. Now you've really done it. But Joo-Heon barely paid him any attention. Instead, he calmly looked around the police station. He had finally accepted the situation. He really had gone back in time. Moments later, the police locked him inside a holding cell. Meanwhile, the furious woman continued screaming from outside. I'm taking this to court. He assaulted my son. Joo-Heon simply leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. It won't matter anyway. A few more months, and none of these laws will mean anything. His thoughts drifted toward the future he knew all too well. In the year 2025, massive earthquakes suddenly struck all around the world. Not long afterward, mysterious tombs began appearing across the globe. Hidden inside those tombs were relics straight out of myths, legends, fairy tales, historical records, and even famous novels. Objects that humanity had once believed were nothing more than stories were suddenly real. Each relic possessed extraordinary supernatural powers. Anyone capable of obtaining one gained abilities far beyond ordinary humans. Naturally, the entire world descended into a frenzy. Everyone rushed to claim relics for themselves. Joo-Heon had been one of those people. His greatest discovery had been an archaeologist's relic. At the time, it had felt like winning the lottery. He believed that with its knowledge of ancient tombs and hidden relics, he could finally escape the miserable life he had always lived. But reality had been far crueler. Before ordinary people could freely explore the tombs, powerful organizations quickly seized control. Governments, private corporations, armed groups, they all claimed ownership over newly discovered tombs. Anyone who entered without permission was treated as a criminal or simply killed. That was when one organization rose to overwhelming prominence. TKBM, led by its ruthless chairman, Kwon. Many powerful relic users began monopolizing excavations, making sure nobody except themselves could obtain valuable relics. Fortunately for Joo-Heon, his incredible talent for locating hidden relics was quickly recognized. TKBM recruited him almost immediately. From that day forward, he became Chairman Kwon's most valuable hunting dog. He accepted every filthy job they gave him: smuggling, theft, espionage, illegal tomb raids. If the government declared a tomb off limits, Joo-Heon was the one sent to secretly break in. He stole priceless relics, one after another, and every single one of them ended up enriching Chairman Kwon. Meanwhile, Joo-Heon received almost nothing in return. The memories shifted once again. He walked through TKBM's headquarters while co-workers whispered behind his back. There goes the chairman's lapdog. He can't do anything without following Chairman Kwon's orders. The insults never stopped. Everyone looked down on him. Yet Joo-Heon endured every humiliation in silence. He smiled, pretended not to care, and continued serving Kwon Tae-jun like a loyal dog, only for that loyalty to be rewarded with betrayal. When he had finally outlived his usefulness, Chairman Kwon had thrown him into a deadly tomb and abandoned him there to die. Back inside the holding cell, Joo-Heon leaned against the cold concrete wall, quietly organizing his thoughts. He already knew what was coming. Very soon, the relics would begin appearing across the world. And once they did, society as everyone knew it would completely collapse. Governments would lose control. Laws would become meaningless. The world would descend into absolute chaos. Joo-Heon clenched his fist. It's good that I've become stronger after returning, but strength alone won't be enough. If he wanted to change his future, he needed one thing above all else. Money. A lot of it. He had to gather enough capital to begin excavating tombs before anyone else. The question is, where am I supposed to get that kind of money? Just then, a glowing translucent panel suddenly appeared in front of his face. Joo-Heon instinctively stepped back. The floating screen displayed a single line. He stared at it in complete confusion. A floating window. What the hell is this? Am I finally starting to hallucinate? Before he could make sense of it, another message appeared beneath the first. Joo-Heon's expression immediately changed. Only one thing in the world could create something like this. A relic. He quickly stood up and looked around the empty cell. Hey, Crow, if you're watching me, come out already. The mysterious bird never appeared. Instead, another translucent screen materialized before him. This one looked completely different. It resembled a status window. Several abilities were listed beneath his name. One immediately caught his attention. Spy Rank F effect can clearly observe everything within a 1-meter radius. Joo-Heon's eyebrow twitched. Without hesitation, he punched the floating screen. My life isn't some stupid game. The panel didn't even move. Instead, another notification popped up. Quest received. Activate the 4 talents of the Tomb Raider. Joo-Heon stared at the message with growing irritation. A quest? What kind of nonsense is this? His frustration was interrupted by the police officer outside the cell. Hey, keep it down in there. Joo-Heon looked toward him. The officer showed absolutely no reaction to the floating windows surrounding him. That confirmed it. I'm the only one who can see these. Curious, Joo-Heon activated the newly acquired spy skill. His vision instantly sharpened. A tiny cockroach crawling across the floor suddenly came into perfect focus. He could see every movement of its tiny legs with incredible clarity. His eyes widened slightly. This is the archaeologist relic's ability. Even though he no longer possessed the relic itself, its power had somehow remained with him after traveling back in time. Looking at the status window again, he noticed something else. The spy skill was labeled 1-4. His eyes narrowed. So there are still 3 more abilities waiting to be unlocked. A slow smile spread across his face. At least now, he had something valuable to work with. A starting advantage. Still, one question continued bothering him. What exactly is that crow trying to accomplish? After everything he'd experienced with relics, he knew better than anyone else that they weren't benevolent. There was no way relics would suddenly decide to help humanity out of kindness. There had to be another motive. Before he could think any further, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed outside the cell. Moments later, the cell door opened. A familiar man greeted him with a wide smile. Come on, you're free to go. A short while later, the two of them walked out of the police station together. The man scratched the back of his head before speaking. That high school kid turned out to be a repeat offender. Honestly, he should have been the one locked up instead of you. He smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, I'll handle the rest. Joo-Heon looked at him quietly before smiling. Thank you, Mr. Jinwoo. The man froze for a second. Did you just thank me? He stared suspiciously at Joo-Heon. Did you hit your head or something? You almost sound like a normal person today. He laughed. Looks like spending a little time in the holding cell scared you straight. Joo-Heon simply smiled. Detective Kim Jinwoo, the man who had looked after him when he had absolutely no one else. Seeing him standing here again, looking 15 years younger, filled Joo-Heon with an unfamiliar sense of nostalgia. As they walked home together, Joo-Heon casually asked, have there been any strange incidents lately? Like someone suddenly being possessed by a monster, or people developing psychic powers? Jinwoo gave him a puzzled look. What are you talking about? If you're looking for that kind of stuff, you should visit a fortune teller. Then he chuckled to himself. Actually, I think my wife might secretly be psychic. Joo-Heon blinked. Jinwoo continued with a laugh. Every once in a while, she somehow finds the emergency cash I've hidden. Joo-Heon couldn't help smiling. That answer told him everything he needed to know. The relic users hadn't appeared yet. The world was still normal. For now. Eventually, they reached the intersection where they would part ways. Jinwoo waved goodbye. Go home and get some proper rest. Joo-Heon nodded. I will. After Jinwoo disappeared down the street, Joo-Heon continued walking alone. This is the exact period when the first tombs begin appearing. But relic users still don't exist, which means this is the perfect opportunity. If he moved fast enough, he could claim countless relics before history unfolded the way he remembered. Unfortunately, there was still one major obstacle: money. The earliest tombs had appeared primarily across Europe and North America. If he wanted to reach them before everyone else, he needed enough money to buy a plane ticket immediately. Just then, several men stepped out from around a nearby corner and blocked his path. One of them sneered, "Why are you wandering around instead of working?" Instead of feeling annoyed, Joo-Heon smiled. A very wide smile. Perfect. Looks like I just found my startup capital. Standing in front of him was none other than Park Kyung-tae, a former gangster who now worked as an art broker. Alongside his older sister, Park Kyung-ju, he operated a small art gallery that served as little more than a front for their shady dealings. Back when Joo-Heon was still in high school, he had desperately needed money, so he'd taken a part-time job working for them. In return, they paid him almost nothing, bullied him every chance they got, beat him whenever they felt like it. Even so, he had endured everything, swallowing his pride, pretending to be their obedient little dog just to survive. One of the thugs stepped forward. "What? Not answering again? Do we have to punch you before you learn some manners?" He swung his fist toward Joo-Heon, but before anyone could even blink, bam! Joo-Heon's fist connected first. The thug collapsed instantly. Joo-Heon calmly dusted off his hands. "Go tell your boss something for me. I'm resigning, effective today. And while you're at it, tell her to prepare every last cent she still owes me, my unpaid wages, and my severance pay." The group stared at him for a second. Then they burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha. He's lost his mind." Park Kyung-tae cracked his knuckles before stepping forward himself. "You've gotten pretty cocky." He threw a punch. Joo-Heon slipped past it effortlessly. His counterattack came so fast it was almost invisible. Crack! His fist slammed directly into Kyung-tae's jaw. The force launched the thug completely off his feet. Before he even landed, Joo-Heon spun around. Boom! A powerful kick smashed into Kyung-tae's chest, sending him crashing into a nearby wall. The remaining thugs froze in disbelief. Their leader had been defeated in seconds. Realizing they had no choice, they all charged at Joo-Heon together. Unfortunately for them, they were fighting someone who had survived 15 years in the world's deadliest tombs. To Joo-Heon, they moved like amateurs. Punches, kicks, grabs. He avoided every attack with effortless precision before knocking each thug to the ground one after another. Within moments, every single one of them was lying helplessly on the pavement. Joo-Heon couldn't help grinning. But just as he admired his own movements, his hands suddenly began trembling. His smile faded. Right, my body hasn't caught up yet. His mind still possessed 15 years of experience, but physically, he was still only the younger version of himself. His muscles weren't strong enough to fully withstand techniques meant for his future body. I need to finish this quickly. Just then, Park Kyung-tae slowly stood back up. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. With a vicious grin, he pulled a beautiful golden dagger from inside his jacket. "You've forgotten who raised you." One of the thugs immediately panicked. "B-boss, don't use that. What if you seriously kill him?" Kyung-tae didn't even look at him. "I don't care." The moment Joo-Heon's eyes landed on the golden dagger, his expression instantly changed. "That's a relic." His heartbeat quickened. How does he already have one? Then he quickly remembered. Not every relic appeared inside tombs. Some had quietly slipped into the human world long before the official relic era began. Rare, but not impossible. Kyung-tae charged forward with the golden dagger aimed straight at Joo-Heon's chest. Instead of panicking, Joo-Heon smiled. A confident grin spread across his face. Doesn't matter. His eyes locked onto the glowing weapon. Because starting today, that relic belongs to me. Episode 2 opened exactly where the previous chapter had left off. Fueled by anger and humiliation, Kwon Kyung-tae lunged at Joo-Heon, gripping the relic knife with murderous intent. Without saying a word, he swung the blade repeatedly, hoping to overwhelm his former subordinate through sheer aggression. But to Kyung-tae's horror, not a single attack landed. Joo-Heon effortlessly sidestepped every slash as though he had already memorized each movement. His footwork was calm, precise, and almost elegant, making Kyung-tae's desperate attacks look painfully clumsy. Before Kyung-tae could even process what had happened, Joo-Heon moved. In one swift motion, he grabbed Kyung-tae's wrist and bent it until the relic knife was pointed directly at Kyung-tae's own throat. The sudden reversal left everyone speechless. The gang members standing nearby stared in complete disbelief. Joo-Heon looked down at the trembling man with an amused smile. "I'll be taking this." Without waiting for permission, he effortlessly pried the relic knife from Kyung-tae's hand. Holding the blade for the first time, Joo-Heon finally activated the relic's true abilities. A faint blue aura spread across the knife before strange energy flowed into his eyes. Immediately, the world around him changed. The bodies of everyone nearby became transparent. The relic granted its wielder the ability to see through living beings. But that wasn't its only power. The knife possessed another unique ability: camouflage. As two gang members rushed toward him, convinced they had him surrounded, Joo-Heon calmly activated the relic. His presence instantly faded. Before either thug even realized what had happened, the blade flashed through the air. Both men staggered forward as fresh wounds appeared across their bodies. Only after several seconds did they realize they had already been cut. Joo-Heon casually rested the knife on his shoulder before asking, "So, do either of you still want to keep fighting?" Neither of them answered. The fear written across their faces was answer enough. They had already surrendered. Meanwhile, inside the Xiong gallery, Kwon Kyung-ja was listening to her brother over the phone. Her expression grew darker with every word. "Wait, you're telling me Joo-Heon beat all of you?" She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Out of everyone, you're seriously expecting me to believe that?" On the other end of the call, Kyung-tae nervously wiped the blood from his face. "I'm serious." He suddenly started moving unbelievably fast. It was like he became a completely different person. Even his eyes changed color. Kyung-ja frowned. "How much did he steal?" Kyung-tae swallowed nervously. "Everything. He emptied the money from my account. And he also took the Buddha statue." The moment she heard those words, Kyung-ja's eyes widened. "What? The Buddha statue too?" She immediately screamed into the phone. "Go after him. Bring it back immediately." Meanwhile, Joo-Heon casually strolled through the city streets with the small golden Buddha statue tucked beneath one arm. As he walked, he remembered the words of the pawnshop owner. "This thing isn't even worth 5,000 yen. You'd be better off throwing it away." At first glance, the statue really did appear worthless. But Joo-Heon wasn't convinced. "If it were really junk, Kyung-tae wouldn't have panicked the moment I took it." Just then, a translucent purple status window suddenly appeared before his eyes. Skill activated sky reconnaissance. Suspicious substance detected inside the statue. A small smile spread across Joo-Heon's face. "So I was right." Without hesitation, he drew the relic knife and carefully sliced open the bottom of the statue. The hollow interior immediately revealed its secret. A small glass bottle rolled onto the ground. Inside it was a mysterious liquid. Joo-Heon picked up the bottle, examined it for a moment, and smiled knowingly. "I knew it. The so-called priceless Buddha statue was nothing more than a cleverly disguised container for illegal drugs." Without wasting another second, he pulled out his phone and contacted Detective Kim. At almost the same time, back inside Xiong Gallery, Kyung-ja was desperately trying to calm one of her clients over the phone. She had barely finished speaking when the office door suddenly burst open. She turned around and froze. Standing there was Kyung-tae in handcuffs. Behind him stood two detectives. One of them stepped forward. It was Detective Kim. "We received a report regarding multiple drug trafficking offenses." Kyung-ja forced herself to remain calm. "There must be some mistake. We're respectable art dealers. We don't sell drugs. We're law-abiding citizens." Detective Kim simply reached into his evidence bag and held up the bottle Joo-Heon had discovered inside the Buddha statue. "We already have our evidence." Then he smiled. "I assume the rest of your inventory is stored in the warehouse." Kyung-ja's face immediately paled. "How? How do they even know about the warehouse in Chiba?" Fortunately, she quickly reassured herself. Every storage room had its own unique password. There was no way the police could get inside. Trying to maintain her composure, she crossed her arms. "I have no idea what you're talking about. What warehouse? What drugs? Are the police allowed to accuse innocent people without evidence now?" Just then, Detective Kim's radio crackled. An officer stationed at the warehouse reported, "Every exhibit has been inspected. We found narcotics hidden inside every single piece of artwork." Kyung-ja stood frozen. "Impossible. How did they open every room?" Before she could even react, another officer stepped forward and placed handcuffs around her wrists as the detectives prepared to escort her away. Detective Kim suddenly held out his phone. "Someone wants to speak with you." Kyung-ja hesitated before placing the phone to her ear. A familiar voice greeted her. It was Joo-Heon. "You really should have lived a little more honestly." Her eyes widened instantly. Joo-Heon, he chuckled softly. "You know, you should have changed your warehouse passwords every once in a while. It might have been annoying, but it would have saved you a lot of trouble." There was a brief pause. Then he added with a smile, "Anyway, enjoy your stay in prison." The call ended. Kyung-ja could only stare at the silent phone in complete disbelief. Later that evening, as Joo-Heon walked home through the quiet streets, his phone buzzed. It was another message from Detective Kim. "Your 10 million won reward has been approved. Try not to spend it all at once." Joo-Heon smiled to himself. Perfect. Now I finally have enough starting capital. Everything was falling into place. For now, he simply planned to go home, get some sleep, and prepare for the following day. Because tomorrow, his real hunt for relics would begin. However, the moment he reached his neighborhood, he stopped dead in his tracks. His eyes widened. His apartment building was gone. In its place stood an enormous ancient tomb, rising from the earth like a mountain. The massive structure towered over the surrounding buildings, completely transforming the neighborhood. When did a tomb appear here? Joo-Heon muttered quietly. Residents stood outside in complete panic. Some cried over the homes they had just lost. Others demanded answers. No one understood what had happened. The entire area had already been sealed off by the military. As Joo-Heon quietly observed from the crowd, he noticed something far more interesting. Inside the restricted zone, a blonde woman was speaking through a communication device. "I've arrived safely. The Korean government still doesn't know anything about the tombs. We'll begin detonation preparations shortly." As soon as she finished her report, another person approached her. He smiled casually before asking, "You seem surprised, Linda Walker." Linda frowned. "What is an excavation team from the Republic of Benin doing here?" The man chuckled. "I could ask the same thing. I don't need someone from the United States questioning my presence." He smiled mockingly. "How's the jet lag?" Linda crossed her arms. "You're awfully enthusiastic for someone who's basically a thief, Rui Kenshi." Kenshi simply laughed. "Don't play innocent. We both know exactly why we're here, so you'd better stay sharp, because that relic is going to belong to us." Hidden nearby, Joo-Heon quietly listened to every word of their conversation. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "So the CIA and the Republic of Benin's excavation team, they're both already here." Watching the foreign agents prepare explosives, he couldn't help but smile. That confirms it. Even they still don't understand how tombs actually work. Glowing crimson markings slowly spread across the ground, as if they had come alive. One after another, ancient symbols carved themselves into the earth, forming a winding trail that stretched straight toward the hidden tomb. Without the slightest hesitation, Joo-Heon followed the glowing path. As he walked, he calmly explained, "These are tomb glyphs, the language of the relics." Unlike ordinary writing, these mysterious symbols carried far more than simple words. They contained detailed information about the tomb itself, including its layout, hidden passages, deadly traps, and even the exact location of the entrance. If you can read these glyphs, Joo-Heon thought to himself, you can safely navigate almost any tomb before anyone else. For ordinary people, the symbols were nothing more than meaningless carvings. But for someone capable of deciphering them, they were an invaluable guide. Just then, another translucent purple status window materialized before Joo-Heon. New skill acquired linguistics rank F effect grants the ability to understand, interpret, and translate all existing languages, including the ancient language of relics and tomb glyphs. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. "Perfect, now I've unlocked another one." He quietly counted his progress. "Only 2 more basic skills remain before I complete the requirements." Guided by the glyphs, Joo-Heon soon arrived before what appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary stone wall. To everyone else, it looked like a dead end. But he knew better. Without saying a word, he raised the relic knife and slashed across the ancient markings carved into the stone. The instant the blade touched the glyph's boom, a massive pillar of crimson light erupted into the night sky. The beam pierced through the clouds like an explosion, illuminating the entire city. Even the foreign excavation teams, several hundred meters away, immediately noticed it. One of Linda Walker's agents rushed toward her. "Director, it looks like the tomb entrance is opening." Linda frowned. "What do you mean opening?" Before the man could explain, Rui Kenshi suddenly dashed toward the enormous pillar of light. Linda clicked her tongue before immediately chasing after him. Both excavation teams hurried toward the source. When they finally arrived, they froze. A gigantic entrance had appeared where there had once been solid ground. Without wasting a second, both agents leaped into the tomb. Meanwhile, Joo-Heon was already far ahead of them. He calmly walked deeper into the ancient ruins, his footsteps echoing through the silent corridors. Something should be showing up soon. The deeper he ventured, the darker the tunnel became. He pulled out a lighter and ignited its flame. Its faint orange glow illuminated countless tomb glyphs, covering every wall. Joo-Heon smiled. "I'm on the right path." The ancient writings confirmed that he hadn't taken a wrong turn. After walking for several more minutes, the narrow corridor suddenly opened into a vast underground chamber. In the center lay a crystal-clear pond, whose water shimmered with an unnatural blue glow. Joo-Heon slowly approached its edge. Without hesitation, he pulled out his dagger and tossed it into the water. For a brief moment, everything became silent. Then, the surface of the pond rippled violently. A gigantic white serpent slowly emerged from beneath the water. Its enormous body coiled around the pond while its golden eyes locked onto its unexpected visitor. The creature let out a deep laugh. "It seems I finally have another visitor." Its voice echoed throughout the chamber. "So tell me, what unfortunate soul has dropped his treasured weapon into my pond this time?" Joo-Heon casually waved toward the enormous serpent. "Hey, I'm over here. Can't you see me?" Curious, the serpent lowered its massive head until it stood directly before him. Then it slowly opened its mouth. Inside rested two beautiful daggers. One was forged entirely from gold. The other shimmered with polished silver. The serpent spoke once again. "Tell me, which of these belongs to you?" The moment Joo-Heon saw the two blades, he immediately recognized the trial. The gold and silver tale. It was an ancient legend known all over the world, a story based on Hermes and the honest woodcutter, though different versions existed across many cultures. The trial itself was incredibly simple. Anyone familiar with the story already knew the correct answer. Under normal circumstances, almost anyone could clear this tomb. But Joo-Heon simply smiled. "Unfortunately for you, this time you're dealing with me." The serpent patiently waited. "So, which dagger is yours?" Joo-Heon shook his head. "I'm afraid neither of them belongs to me." The serpent nodded approvingly. Honest, its mouth opened once more. This time, only one dagger rested inside, Joo-Heon's own weapon. The serpent asked, then, "Is this one yours?" Joo-Heon already knew exactly how the story ended. If he answered yes, the serpent would reward him with not only his own dagger, but also both the golden and silver daggers. The trial would be cleared peacefully. Everything followed the famous fable perfectly. However, Joo-Heon had absolutely no intention of playing along. Instead, he smiled politely. "Would you mind if I take a closer look first?" The serpent saw nothing suspicious. "Of course, go ahead." Joo-Heon slowly stepped closer. He leaned toward the dagger, examining it carefully. Then slash. His blade flashed across the air. Instead of taking the dagger, he sliced the serpent's mouth wide open. Blood splattered across the pond. The serpent recoiled in complete shock. Joo-Heon calmly wiped the blood from his blade. "I don't trust your kind. There isn't a single guarantee that you'll actually reward me after passing your little trial." He looked directly into the serpent's frightened eyes. "And even if you do, who's to say your reward isn't another curse? What if accepting it turns me into some deranged murderer?" The serpent's expression changed instantly. "How do you know that?" Joo-Heon's eyes narrowed. He remembered the future. A similar relic had once appeared in America. Its owner had passed the trial honestly, received the legendary reward, and eventually became one of the country's most infamous serial killers. The relic hadn't rewarded him. It had corrupted him. Enraged, the serpent lunged toward Joo-Heon. Its massive jaws snapped shut, but Joo-Heon had already moved. He leaped high into the air, landed directly on top of the serpent's head, and drove the dagger deep into its skull. The serpent let out an agonizing scream. Joo-Heon looked down coldly. "Just admit defeat already." The serpent roared. "Do you honestly think you can claim me this way?" Joo-Heon simply smiled. "We'll see. I'll use dominance to make you submit." Without hesitation, he shoved the dagger even deeper into the serpent's head. The creature writhed violently in unbearable pain. As the serpent struggled, Joo-Heon calmly explained the three fundamental methods of controlling relics. The first method, affinity. It allows a person to control a relic by earning its trust and forming a genuine relationship. He tightened his grip. The second, dominance. Instead of friendship, you overwhelm the relic completely and force it to obey through absolute strength. The serpent crashed wildly across the chamber, desperately trying to throw him off. It slammed against cave walls, rolled across the stone floor, even plunged back into the pond. But despite all of that, Joo-Heon never lost his footing. He remained firmly planted on the serpent's head. The third method is compatibility, the perfect harmony between relic and owner. He smiled, like a master musician with their favorite instrument, or an artist with their beloved brush. The serpent continued thrashing with everything it had. But Joo-Heon refused to let go. "This time, I'm not wasting time trying to earn a relic's friendship." His voice grew colder. No more affinity. He twisted the dagger once more. "Obey me, or I'll destroy you." His eyes became ice cold. "Do you really think I can't?" The serpent's resistance finally began to crumble. Its scales slowly dissolved into glowing particles of light. Its enormous body broke apart into streams of shimmering water. Joo-Heon watched calmly as the once proud guardian completely disintegrated. A satisfied smirk appeared on his face. "You should have obeyed from the beginning." As the serpent vanished completely, its remaining energy condensed into two relics, a magnificent golden axe and a gleaming silver axe. The guardians had finally surrendered. Immediately afterward, another purple status window appeared before him. New title acquired, new skill unlocked. Tomb excavation rank F. Joo-Heon's smile widened. Good, only one more skill left. He was getting closer to completing the requirements for his future plans. Then another notification suddenly appeared. Title obtained. Relic Abuser Dominance. Joo-Heon's eyebrow twitched. Relic Abuser? He looked upward with obvious annoyance. Seriously? Are you trying to mess with me, Crow? Just as Joo-Heon finished subduing the relic, he suddenly sensed two familiar presences approaching the grotto. Without hesitation, he slipped behind a large rock, concealing himself before the newcomers could spot him. A few moments later, Linda Walker and Rui Kenshi entered the chamber. The two foreign agents stared at the now peaceful pond, completely unaware that the tomb had already been cleared. Kenshi stepped forward confidently. So, just like the prophecy. Reaching into his pocket, he took out a relic and tossed it into the crystal-clear pond. The relic sank beneath the surface, but nothing happened, not even a ripple. Hidden behind the rocks, Joo-Heon couldn't help but smirk. You're already too late, idiots. The Guardian had already been defeated. The relic had already been claimed. Kenshi frowned in confusion. What? Why isn't anything happening? He stared at the silent pond before muttering to himself. The prophecy clearly said all I had to do was throw a relic into the pond. Beside him, Linda narrowed her eyes. So, the Republic of Benet really does possess a prophecy relic. Her sharp gaze immediately locked onto Kenshi, but now she was certain. Kenshi immediately shot her a warning look. Stop trying to gather intelligence from me. I won't tell you anything. Before either of them could investigate, the entire grotto began shaking violently. Cracks spread across the ceiling. Huge chunks of rock started falling into the water. The tomb had begun collapsing. The two agents immediately turned around and sprinted toward the exit as the entire underground chamber crumbled behind them. Elsewhere, back at the Shang Gallery, the remaining gang members slowly walked through the empty building. The police had already finished their investigation. Every illegal artwork, every hidden drug shipment, every valuable asset had been confiscated. Nothing remained. One of the thugs let out a long sigh. It's over. With the boss arrested, our entire business is finished. Another thug clenched his fists. This is all Joo-Heon's fault. When I see him again, I'm going to kill him. The others quickly joined in, hyping each other up. Yeah, we'll beat him to death. We'll make him regret ever crossing us. Just as they were passionately promising revenge, a phone suddenly began ringing. Everyone fell silent. One of the gang members slowly picked it up. The caller ID displayed a single name, Joo-Heon. Every face instantly turned pale. Cold sweat rolled down their foreheads. After nervously swallowing, one of them reluctantly answered. On the other end of the line, Joo-Heon's calm voice greeted him. What took you so long? Do you have a death wish? The thug nearly dropped the phone. Without giving him a chance to answer, Joo-Heon continued. I've got a little errand for you. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Rui Kenshi was reporting his failure to his superiors. I failed. There was a brief silence before a voice answered through the communicator. There was another prophecy. Kenshi frowned. What? The latest prophecy only became available a short while ago, but by the time we managed to decipher it, someone else had already acted. Kenshi's expression darkened. You knew there was another prophecy? Why wasn't I informed immediately? The man on the other side sighed. You already know how difficult it is. Our future guide Relic's user couldn't properly read the kanji again. Kenshi immediately understood. Again? Apparently, their prophetic relic's owner had once more failed to fully decipher the future. The voice continued, We're doing everything we can. You focus on your mission. And be careful of one particular Japanese man. Kenshi narrowed his eyes. Who? The answer sent a chill through him. The prophecy describes him as the one who will devour this world. Meanwhile, Joo-Heon was already planning his next move. One location filled his thoughts. Midas, the world's largest underground auction house. Hidden beneath Las Vegas, it served as the greatest black market for relics, treasures, and priceless artifacts. If there was one place where powerful relics gathered, it was Midas. Joo-Heon smiled to himself. If I can get inside, I'll finally learn what Tae-jun is really planning. That was exactly why he had contacted Kyung-tae's former gang. They would become his eyes and ears. Over the phone, Joo-Heon calmly gave them their assignment. I want you to infiltrate this month's Midas auction. Find information on several items, and more importantly, look for someone named Jack-Heeman. He also goes by the initials, JK. The gang members nearly screamed into the phone. Are you insane? Do you know where Midas is? How are we supposed to get into Las Vegas? Joo-Heon answered without the slightest concern. Figure it out yourselves. I'll pay well, so money won't be your problem. Then his voice became noticeably colder. The choice is yours. You can go willingly, or I'll beat you until you beg to work for me. Silence filled the line. The thugs looked at one another. They already knew. There wasn't actually a choice. They reluctantly accepted. Sometime later, Joo-Heon walked out of a convenience store carrying a canned drink. He looked at the bag in his hand and nodded. That should cover today's preparations. He smiled. Now, it's time to go relic hunting. Just then, a television mounted inside the store caught his attention. The news reporter spoke with a serious expression. This marks the fourth mysterious death this month. Authorities continue to classify all of them as apparent suicides. Joo-Heon quietly watched the report. His expression became serious. Just like before, these strange deaths always happened right before a new tomb appeared. He remembered every detail from his previous life. Nothing had changed. Suddenly, bump. Someone accidentally crashed into his shoulder. Joo-Heon looked up. Standing before him was none other than Rui Kenshi. Kenshi frowned. Watch where you're going. The moment Joo-Heon saw him, everything clicked. If Kenshi is here, then the next tomb is about to appear. Around this time, someone in Fukuoka possessed a prophecy relic capable of predicting future tombs. That explained Kenshi's presence perfectly. As Joo-Heon looked at him more carefully, he immediately sensed something. A relic. Its aura leaked from Kenshi's body without any attempt to conceal it. Joo-Heon almost laughed. What an idiot. He's carrying a relic around without even hiding its presence. He simply turned around and began walking away. Behind him, Kenshi shouted, "Hey, I said watch where you're," before he could finish. Joo-Heon casually opened his can. The carbonated drink exploded straight into Kenshi's face. Juice splashed across his clothes. Kenshi froze. Joo-Heon blinked innocently. "Oh, sorry." Kenshi gritted his teeth. "You're paying for the cleaning." Joo-Heon shrugged. "I don't have any money." He glanced at Kenshi's expensive suit, and honestly, it doesn't look that expensive anyway. While pretending to wipe the spilled drink from Kenshi's clothes, Joo-Heon's fingers moved with unbelievable precision. In one smooth motion, he quietly slipped the relic out of Kenshi's pocket. The entire theft happened so naturally that Kenshi never noticed. A second later, Joo-Heon bent down. "You dropped something." He picked up Kenshi's identification card from the ground and politely handed it back. Seeing that gesture, Kenshi's brief suspicion disappeared. At that exact moment, rumble. The earth began shaking violently. People immediately panicked. Only one person remained perfectly calm. Suho Joo-Heon. He already knew what was happening. Another tomb was manifesting. Without wasting another second, he quietly walked away from the chaos. Behind him, Kenshi smiled confidently, just like the prophecy. His phone suddenly rang. He answered immediately. The voice on the other end spoke urgently. "The person who cleared the gold and silver axe tomb, he's somewhere near you. And there's one more strange detail. Our prophecy specifically warns you to stay away from alcohol." Kenshi froze. His eyes slowly widened. He suddenly remembered the man who had spilled a canned drink all over him just moments ago. His expression turned pale. The man from the prophecy. It was him. Kenshi immediately spun around, but it was already too late. Seo Joo-Heon had completely disappeared into the crowd, leaving nothing behind except the realization that he had once again been outplayed. Without any warning, countless razor-sharp blades suddenly burst out of the ground. At the same time, pillars of brilliant golden light erupted throughout the tomb, illuminating the dark surroundings with an eerie glow. A moment later, Joo-Heon slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was an endless field of swords violently piercing through the earth in every direction. All around him, other survivors lay scattered across the ground, frozen in terror as they stared at the deadly forest of blades surrounding them. Panic spread across their faces because one wrong step meant certain death. The instant Joo-Heon laid eyes on the countless swords, he immediately understood what kind of tomb he had entered. This wasn't an ordinary relic tomb. It belonged to Muramasa. The Muramasa family was a legendary line of swordsmiths that existed during Japan's Sengoku and Edo periods. Their swords were famous for possessing unbelievable sharpness, but they were equally infamous for carrying terrifying curses. According to history, 3 generations of a single ruling family from grandfather to father, then son, all met tragic deaths connected to Muramasa blades. Because of that, Muramasa became known throughout history as the cursed sword that destroyed an entire bloodline. And now, Joo-Heon had entered the tomb of that very cursed relic. Unlike most tombs, this one held overwhelming hostility toward humanity itself. Just then, a translucent purple system window suddenly appeared before him. Almost instantly, a burning pain spread across his body. Joo-Heon frowned before rolling up his sleeve. A fresh burn mark had already appeared on his arm, and the skin around it was rapidly darkening. So it's already started. The cursed aura was eating away at anyone inside the tomb. That meant he couldn't afford to waste even a single minute. A confident grin slowly spread across his face, despite the pain. "Just wait for me, Muramasa. I'm coming." Sometime later, Joo-Heon continued making his way deeper into the enormous labyrinth. By now, exhaustion had started catching up with him. Sweat dripped down his face as he looked around the seemingly endless corridors. Why is this tomb so ridiculously huge? He wiped the sweat from his forehead before forcing himself to continue walking. He didn't have the luxury of resting. Every second he wasted increased the chances of someone else claiming Muramasa first. Even the Golden Axe relic, which specialized in locating treasures, couldn't accurately pinpoint Muramasa's location inside a tomb this massive. Clicking his tongue, Joo-Heon thought back to the excavation team from the Republic of Bent. That guy probably already knows where Muramasa is. I should have tailed him from the beginning instead of letting him disappear. If this keeps up, he'll get the relic before I do. The problem was he had no idea where the man had gone. Just then, a desperate scream echoed through the corridors. He rushed toward the sound. When he arrived, he found a horrifying scene. Several people had fallen into a deep pit, desperately trying to escape. Standing among them was a young woman gripping a blood-stained sword. A terrifying crimson aura surrounded her entire body. She slowly raised the blade over a man lying helplessly on the ground. The terrified man and his young daughter cried and begged for mercy. But the woman didn't even react. It was as if she couldn't hear them anymore. She looked completely possessed. The moment Joo-Heon saw her condition, he instantly understood what had happened. The Muramasa relic had already taken control of her. Anyone wounded by that cursed blade would likely become another puppet under its influence. If the curse continued spreading, this tomb would soon descend into complete chaos. While observing the situation, Joo-Heon suddenly noticed something else. A stone bridge had appeared across the pit. He immediately pieced everything together. The bridge only appeared after someone had been offered as a sacrifice. Looking down toward the survivors, Joo-Heon shouted, "Who threw you people into this pit? Was it the man from the Republic of Bent?" One of the survivors nodded frantically. Yes, it was him. He started singing some strange song in a language we couldn't understand. Then this pit suddenly opened beneath us. After pushing us inside, he crossed the bridge and ran deeper into the cave. Joo-Heon's eyes narrowed. So he was just here, that means I still have a chance. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out 2 items. His thoughts drifted back to the convenience store, where he had deliberately spilled his drink all over Rui Kenshi before secretly stealing the relic hidden inside his pocket. Now he finally had a chance to examine it properly. The relic consisted of 2 separate items. A bracelet shaped like a coiled rope, and a piece of mochi. Joo-Heon recognized them immediately. They're the brother, sun, and sister moon relics. The mochi represented the rice cake demanded by the tiger from the children's mother on her journey home. Meanwhile, the rope symbolized the heavenly rope that descended from the sky and saved the 2 siblings from being eaten by the tiger. As soon as he identified the relic, 2 system windows appeared before him one after another. A smile spread across Joo-Heon's face. Perfect, now I finally have all 4 basic Tomb Raider skills. Without hesitating any longer, he leaped straight into the pit. The possessed woman instantly noticed him. The moment their eyes met, she let out a feral scream before charging toward him with incredible speed. Her cursed sword swung directly at his neck, but to Joo-Heon, her attacks looked painfully slow. He effortlessly sidestepped every slash with perfect precision. Each strike missed him by only inches. After calmly avoiding her relentless assault, he finally pulled out the rope bracelet. The tiny bracelet suddenly expanded into an enormous heavenly rope. Like a living snake, it shot through the air before wrapping tightly around the possessed woman. She struggled desperately, but the relic's binding power was absolute. The cursed sword slipped from her hand and clattered onto the ground. The moment the blade left her grasp, the crimson aura surrounding her body vanished completely. Her eyes regained their clarity as she collapsed to her knees, finally freed from Muramasa's control. Joo-Heon immediately turned toward the survivors. Which way did the man from the Republic of Bent go? One survivor quickly pointed toward the bridge. He crossed that bridge and disappeared into the cave. Joo-Heon nodded. Just as he suspected, Kenshi wasn't wandering through the tomb blindly. He already knew exactly where to go. The prophecy relic's user had guided him straight toward Muramasa's location. The young woman, finally freed from the relic's influence, awkwardly looked down at the magical rope wrapped tightly around her body. Embarrassed, she asked if someone could please remove it. Before anyone could react, the rope suddenly came to life, giggling mischievously as it cheerfully declared that it wanted to keep playing with everyone a little longer. Joo-Heon let out a sigh before firmly calling the relic back. The rope tried to resist, squirming around as if it had a mind of its own, but it was completely powerless against Joo-Heon's authority. With a single command, the heavenly rope obediently shrank back into its bracelet form and returned to his hand. Turning toward the terrified survivors, Joo-Heon calmly assured them that he would get every single one of them out of the tomb safely. However, He asked for one favor in return. He wanted them to help him track down the man from the Republic of Benet who had thrown them into the pit. A faint smirk crossed his face, as he promised that once they found him, they could make him pay for everything he had done to them. Meanwhile, on the bridge deeper inside the tomb, Kenshi continued walking while talking on his phone. He asked whether this was truly the location the future guide Relic had predicted. After ending the call, he climbed down into another enormous pit, completely filled with broken swords and rusted blades scattered in every direction. Confidently searching through the endless sea of weapons, Kenshi believed everything was going exactly according to plan. He had already gotten rid of all the witnesses, so now all he had to do was locate the legendary Muramasa relic. Once he secured it, his mission would be complete. After that, he intended to hunt down the mysterious person who had tricked and humiliated him earlier and eliminate him for good. As he imagined himself wielding Muramasa, a twisted grin spread across his face. Once Muramasa is mine, no one will ever stand against me again. However, after searching for what felt like forever, his confident smile slowly disappeared. Every blade he found was nothing more than a useless fake. Broken swords, rusted fragments, worthless copies. The real Muramasa was nowhere to be found. Just as frustration began taking over, Kenshi suddenly heard a wave of footsteps rushing toward him. He quickly turned around in confusion, only to freeze in disbelief. The very survivors he had thrown into the pit were charging straight at him. What? Before he could even react, the furious crowd tackled him to the ground. Their fear instantly transformed into rage as they surrounded him, punching and kicking him from every direction. Kenshi desperately tried to shield himself, but there was nothing he could do against dozens of furious victims seeking revenge. When he finally managed to open his eyes again, someone was calmly standing in front of him. It was Joo-Heon. Resting casually on his shoulder was the golden axe relic. At that moment, Kenshi immediately realized who had ruined everything. Joo-Heon looked down at him with an amused smile. Who else could it have been? His voice dripped with sarcasm as he mocked Kenshi's complete failure. You had a huge head start, and you still couldn't find the relic. He shook his head in disappointment. I guess that's about all you people are good for. Without wasting another second, Joo-Heon raised the golden axe and calmly gave it a command. Find the relic. The golden axe immediately emitted a brilliant golden light. Waves of divine energy spread across the chamber as it began searching every corner of the pit. Moments later, one sword suddenly responded. Hidden beneath countless broken blades, a single katana began radiating a deep purple aura. There you are. Joo-Heon raised his hand. The sword instantly flew through the air and landed perfectly in his grasp. The moment he touched it, an eerie voice echoed throughout the chamber. So, you have finally found me. The sword's sinister voice continued. If you truly desire my power, then drench me in the blood of 10 humans. Its crimson aura intensified. Only human blood can restore my broken body. The voice grew colder. If you refuse, you will never leave this place alive. Nearby, Kenshi looked around in confusion, unable to understand where the mysterious voice was coming from. Joo-Heon simply sighed. This is exactly why I hate blade relics. Looking directly at Muramasa, he casually asked, So, this is your trial? The cursed sword answered proudly. That's right. Its voice became even more bloodthirsty. What are you waiting for? Kill those humans. Instead of following its command, Joo-Heon tightened both hands around the sword's hilt. A confident smile slowly spread across his face. I refuse. Then his eyes narrowed. Instead, let's see how you like a taste of dominance. The instant those words left his mouth, overwhelming pressure exploded from Joo-Heon's body. Muramasa immediately began shaking violently. Dark crimson energy burst out of the blade as it desperately struggled against his control. Stop! The sword screamed, but Joo-Heon ignored every protest. Instead, he continued pouring even more authority into the relic. You'll be the one taking the test. His grip tightened further. So be a good sword and absorb every single one of your copies. Muramasa resisted with everything it had. However, faced with Joo-Heon's overwhelming dominance, the relic eventually broke, one by one. Every cursed blade scattered throughout the chamber began flying toward Muramasa. Thousands of broken swords dissolved into streams of crimson energy before being absorbed into the original blade. The entire pit started trembling violently. Blinding red light erupted across the tomb as the countless fake swords disappeared one after another. Finally, the transformation was complete. The rusted, damaged katana was gone. In its place stood a flawless Muramasa sword, its polished blade shining brilliantly while an elegant blue aura flowed around it. Joo-Heon simply stood there calmly, completely unfazed after forcing one of history's most dangerous cursed relics into submission. Nearby, Kenshi could only stare in absolute disbelief. He had never imagined someone could completely dominate a relic in such a brutal way. Sometime later, the survivors safely escaped the pit by climbing the heavenly rope relic, which stretched all the way to the surface. Realizing he had no other choice, Kenshi quietly blended into the crowd and attempted to climb up with everyone else. Unfortunately for him, nothing escaped Joo-Heon's eyes. Joo-Heon immediately pointed toward him. "Not you." His cold voice stopped Kenshi in his tracks. "You're not climbing out with them." Panic instantly appeared across Kenshi's face. Desperately trying to save himself, he begged Joo-Heon to spare his life. "If you let me go, I'll personally recommend you to my government," he hurriedly continued. "They pay incredibly well. And we even possess the Future Guide relic." Joo-Heon wasn't impressed. "I already know the Future Guide relic can only be used by its original owner." Kenshi quickly shook his head. "That's not a problem. There's a company backing our excavation team. They can solve that. They'll provide you with anything you need." Those words immediately caught Joo-Heon's attention. "A company?" His eyes narrowed. Kenshi nodded eagerly. "You've definitely heard of them, TKBM Corporation." The instant Joo-Heon heard that name, his expression completely changed. Every painful memory from his previous life came rushing back. Without saying another word, he drove his foot directly into Kenshi's stomach. The powerful kick launched Kenshi backward, sending him crashing into the ground. Joo-Heon didn't even bother looking back as he climbed toward the exit. Behind him, Kenshi desperately reached out. Joo-Heon simply smirked. "If TKBM is really so amazing, then why don't you ask them to come save you?" Once he reached the exit, Joo-Heon calmly raised Muramasa before giving one final command: "Seal the tomb." Immediately, the entire dungeon began collapsing. Violent tremors shook every wall as massive cracks spread across the chamber. Gigantic boulders rained down from above. Kenshi desperately tried to escape, but it was already too late. A massive rock crashed directly onto him, burying him beneath the collapsing tomb and ending his life on the spot. Not long afterward, news reports spread across the country. A powerful earthquake had suddenly struck Kawasaki during the evening. At the exact same time, several mysterious underground structures had appeared without warning. Authorities reported that more than 50 civilians had been trapped inside before eventually being rescued. Survivors described horrifying scenes of countless swords erupting from the walls, deadly traps appearing out of nowhere, and a terrifying dungeon unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. One of the survivors gave a statement to reporters, revealing that the entire disaster had been caused by a member of the Republic of Bent's excavation team. News anchors reported that the government was still waiting for an official response from the Republic of Bent regarding the incident. Meanwhile, several other nations had already begun criticizing the country's reckless actions, placing immense political pressure on them. Then, someone abruptly switched off the television. The room fell silent. It wasn't an ordinary meeting room, it was filled with the highest-ranking officials of the Republic of Bent. Their expressions were cold, and the atmosphere was suffocating. Standing in front of them with his head lowered was one of their military officers, trembling as he apologized. One of the officials glared at him. "So, explain this to me." His voice echoed through the room. "Why is the entire world's media suddenly talking about tombs and relics? You were supposed to handle this operation quietly, and instead you've dragged the Republic of Bent's reputation through the mud." The officer clenched his fists. It was an unexpected variable. He lowered his head even further. "The man from the prophecy is responsible." The official's expression immediately darkened. "Weren't you the one who assured me, as head of the excavation team, that this man would be eliminated?" The officer swallowed hard. "I failed, but we still have a chance." He quickly explained that thanks to the prophecy relic, they had already begun tracking Joo-Heon. The official narrowed his eyes. "The prophecy relic can only mark people its owner has personally met. So how exactly are you tracking him?" The soldier immediately answered. Kenshi made direct contact with him. The moment they met, the book placed a mark on Joo-Heon. It doesn't reveal his exact location, but it allows us to track his movements well enough. He bowed deeply. "Please, give me one more chance. This time I won't fail." Meanwhile, far away from the political chaos, Joo-Heon had already returned to his hotel room. The first thing he did was roll up his sleeve. His confident expression disappeared. His entire arm was covered in horrifying black burn marks. The curse had spread much farther than before. Joo-Heon quietly stared at the wounds. This was the price of domination. Every relic possessed its own will. Normally, a relic expected its owner to pass its trial and earn its trust. Instead, Joo-Heon completely ignored every trial. He simply forced the relic into submission. The stronger the relic, the more violently it resisted. Every time he dominated another relic, that backlash damaged his own body. At this rate, his body wouldn't survive much longer. Just then, a familiar purple notification materialized before his eyes. Quest reward available. Another window appeared immediately afterward. Choose your reward path carefully. Affinity route or dominance route. Joo-Heon couldn't help but laugh. So you're still asking me that? He smirked confidently. You really don't know me yet. Without the slightest hesitation, he selected the path of dominance. The notification flashed brightly. Reward granted. Then, nothing happened. Joo-Heon blinked. That's it? He searched around the room in confusion. Nothing. Finally, he reached into his pocket. His fingers touched something small. Pulling it out, he found a tiny round pill resting in his palm. Another system message appeared. Consumable relic acquired. Joo-Heon frowned. This doesn't look suspicious at all. He stared at the pill. What if I die after eating this? For a brief moment, even he hesitated. Then he shrugged. If I die, then I guess that's just my fate. Without overthinking it, he swallowed the pill. Immediately, a warm sensation spread throughout his entire body. The painful burns covering his arm began disappearing before his eyes. A new notification appeared. New ability acquired. Tolerance by enduring a relic's poison and curse. Your body has developed resistance. Recovery complete. Joo-Heon lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His expression slowly became thoughtful. So it really neutralizes relic poison. If that's true, this skill is ridiculously valuable. Very few relic users could withstand curses. Even fewer could completely resist them. This single ability would make surviving future tombs infinitely easier. But something still bothered him. He remembered the mysterious crow that kept appearing through the system. Every reward, every convenient coincidence, it all seemed connected. What exactly are you planning? What do you gain from helping me? Before he could think any further, another purple window suddenly appeared. Warning, an S-rank relic has marked you. Your future is currently being observed. Joo-Heon's eyes narrowed immediately. So, the prophecy relic finally found me. He already knew exactly which relic it was. The legendary prophecy book created by the famous Chinese strategist Zhuge Liang. Unlike ordinary relics, this one didn't create tombs. Instead, it chose its owner. In this timeline, that owner was a young Japanese girl named Sasaki Yuka. The Republic of Bent discovered both the girl and the relic before anyone else. They offered her unlimited financial support in exchange for using the book's predictions to locate newly appearing tombs. To outsiders, it probably looked like a dream come true, a young girl suddenly supported by an entire government. But Joo-Heon knew the truth. Yuka wasn't some genius prophet. She barely understood the ancient language written inside the relic. Reading even a few pages gave her terrible headaches. Eventually, someone with far greater compatibility appeared. And when that happened, Yuka's usefulness ended. In Joo-Heon's previous life, she died. Inside the Republic of Bent's headquarters, Yuka sat peacefully watching television. An agent suddenly entered the room. It's time. You need to read today's prophecy. She reluctantly picked up the ancient book. The strange characters immediately made her dizzy. I hate this. I can't even recognize half these symbols. The agent calmly replied. Write down every character you don't understand. We'll analyze them later. Yuka nodded and continued reading. Then, she screamed. The agent rushed toward her. What happened? Her hands trembled violently. The book, it says, I'm going to die. Tears filled her eyes. Every page, every single page, it only says one thing. I'm going to die. Meanwhile, Joo-Heon had already flown to Japan. Instead of rushing into action, he calmly sat inside a sushi restaurant, enjoying an expensive meal. As he ate, he glanced toward the entrance. I came all the way here. So where are they? Beside him rested a notebook. Inside were copied fragments of the prophecy. Joo-Heon smiled confidently. The prophecy relic protects its owner. If I'm truly the greatest threat, they should already be watching me. So, what are they waiting for? Outside the private room, several Republic of Bent agents stood fully armed, assault rifles ready. One of them turned toward Yuka. Are you ready? She nervously looked down at the tray of sushi she was carrying. Why do I have to serve food to the man who's supposed to kill me? The agent sighed. You only need to look into his eyes. Once you make direct eye contact, the book will completely mark him. Besides, he doesn't even know what you look like. If anything happens, we're right outside. Still trembling, Yuka slowly entered the room. The moment she looked up, she froze. Joo-Heon looked even more handsome than she expected. Her face instantly turned bright red. Meanwhile, Joo-Heon immediately recognized her. So, you're the owner of the prophecy relic. His hand slowly reached toward Muramasa. Outside, the surveillance team saw his movement through the cameras. Every soldier panicked. He's drawing his weapon. Yuka's in danger. They prepared to rush inside. But before anyone could open the door, it suddenly slammed shut. Everyone froze. Then they realized Yuka herself had locked it. She turned toward Joo-Heon with a nervous smile. Can we be friends? Even Joo-Heon looked completely caught off guard. Of all the scenarios he had expected, this definitely wasn't one of them. Yuka smiled shyly before pulling out her phone. She quickly typed a message and held it toward him. You're really handsome. Would you like to go get boba tea with me? Joo-Heon blinked several times. Seriously? You're flirting with me? But almost immediately, his expression changed. This was actually the perfect opportunity. He took the phone from her hands, calmly typed his own reply, then showed it back to her. The moment she read it, her entire face lit up with excitement. Outside, the agents were growing increasingly nervous. Just as they prepared to break down the door boom, a massive explosion blasted through the hallway. When it finally cleared, every single armed agent was hanging upside down from the ceiling. Joo-Heon casually dusted off his hands. Now that the annoying people are out of the way, he smiled at Yuka. How about we continue our date somewhere a little quieter? And just like that, the two of them calmly walked out of the building together, leaving an entire squad of elite soldiers dangling helplessly from the ceiling behind them. Episode 4 begins with Joo-Heon and Sasaki Yuka walking side by side after leaving the chaos behind them. Joo-Heon glanced at the soldiers who had been following them and scoffed. Those military guys sure were cowards. They had actually sent a young woman like Sasaki straight to the front lines just to deal with him. Sasaki looked at him in confusion. She had no idea how Joo-Heon could possibly know that. How did you know that? She asked. Joo-Heon simply gave her a mysterious smile. He had his ways. Sasaki nodded, realizing that he was probably right. Those soldiers had been keeping a close eye on her the entire time, almost as if they were waiting for something to happen. Joo-Heon suddenly placed a hand on top of Sasaki's head and smiled. Then let's cause a little trouble for those guys together. Sasaki was completely impressed by him. Despite everything she had heard about Joo-Heon, he didn't seem scary at all. In fact, she began wondering if he had been lying when he said he was going to curse her to death. After all, she had already made eye contact with him, which meant that she should be able to use the prophecy relic to read his future. But then Sasaki remembered something important. She had left the prophecy relic at home. Not realizing what Joo-Heon had planned, Sasaki happily continued walking beside him, enjoying what she believed was becoming a rather pleasant little date. Eventually, the two of them arrived at a quiet cafe. Sasaki smiled as she looked around, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. Joo-Heon suddenly pulled out a knife and pressed it against her neck. Sasaki froze. Her expression immediately changed. What are you doing? Joo-Heon didn't even blink. Stay quiet and give me your phone. Confused and frightened, Sasaki handed over her phone. Joo-Heon took it. Then, without hesitation, he crushed it. The phone shattered in his hand. Sasaki stared at him in disbelief. Joo-Heon calmly looked at her. You thought I didn't know who you were? I know you're the owner of the prophecy relic. Tears began forming in Sasaki's eyes. She had been discovered. She had no idea what she was supposed to do now. The two eventually went inside the cafe and sat down at a table. A waiter arrived and served their food before quietly leaving. Joo-Heon looked at Sasaki as if nothing unusual had happened. Now, let's start our date. Sasaki stared at him blankly. Then Joo-Heon placed a notebook and a pen on the table. He pushed them toward her. Copy every prophecy you can see from the prophecy relic into this notebook. Sasaki's expression instantly turned furious. You call this a date? She then reminded him that the prophecy relic wasn't even with her. She had left it at home. Joo-Heon laughed. Stop acting like you don't know anything. Touch the tattoo on your arm and summon the prophecy relic. Sasaki looked confused. Joo-Heon sighed. She didn't even know such a basic function of her own relic. Sasaki reluctantly touched the tattoo on her arm and called for the prophecy relic. To her complete shock, the relic suddenly appeared in front of her. Her eyes widened. It actually worked. Joo-Heon wasn't impressed. Now write everything down, and don't miss a single detail. With no other choice, Sasaki picked up the pen and began copying the prophecies into the notebook. Time passed. Sasaki continued writing until her hand began to ache. Joo-Heon glanced at her. You're slowing down. At this rate, we're never going to finish. My arm hurts. Sasaki complained, I can't write anymore. She finally put the pen down and looked at him. If you want the prophecy relic so badly, I'll give it to you. Just let me go. Joo-Heon didn't even look away from his phone. No, Sasaki's face fell. She immediately regretted being fooled by his good looks and the little kindness he had shown her earlier. Meanwhile, Joo-Heon was thinking about the real problem. If he could simply take the prophecy relic from Sasaki, he would have done it already. But the prophecy relic was an S-rank relic. Trying to dominate a relic of that level by force would come with enormous penalties. Muramasa had been a lower-ranked relic. Joo-Heon had been able to overpower it and endure the consequences, even if it left his arm badly burned. But an S-rank relic was an entirely different matter. Joo-Heon wasn't willing to gamble his life just to take it. Suddenly, noise erupted outside the cafe. The staff could be heard desperately trying to stop someone from entering. Joo-Heon immediately understood what was happening. The military had arrived. He stood up. That's enough. Stop writing. Sasaki looked at him nervously. Joo-Heon drew his sword. Seeing the blade, Sasaki's face went pale. She thought this was it. He was finally going to kill her. Please, spare my life. Joo-Heon smirked. Don't get the wrong idea. Then he moved. Slash. In a single decisive strike, Joo-Heon drove his sword straight into the prophecy relic. The relic screamed. It couldn't understand what Joo-Heon was doing. Sasaki stared at the scene in complete confusion. Then the prophecy relic began to crack. A moment later, it was completely destroyed. Sasaki's eyes widened before her body suddenly went limp. She collapsed unconscious. Joo-Heon looked down at her. This is for your own good. At that moment, a system window appeared before him. Joo-Heon's dominance increased while his affinity decreased. His ability to detect relics also improved, while his spy skill increased to E rank. But that wasn't all. Because he had destroyed an S-rank relic, Joo-Heon received another powerful ability. Joo-Heon calmly picked up the notebook containing the copied prophecies. He was ready to leave, but before he could take another step, the door burst open. The military soldiers stormed into the room and immediately pointed their guns at him. Freeze! Joo-Heon simply stood there. He wasn't frightened in the slightest. He looked completely confident, as if the entire situation was still going according to his plan. One of the soldiers looked past him. His eyes widened when he saw the completely destroyed prophecy relic. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. What happened here? Joo-Heon gave him a confident smile. What do you mean? He casually gestured toward the shattered relic. Isn't it obvious? The soldier's expression hardened. You'll be executed here for what you've done. Joo-Heon laughed. Don't make me laugh. Instead of showing any concern, he reached into his belongings and pulled out the mochi relic. Then he tossed it into the air. The soldier instinctively caught it. He stared at the strange relic, completely confused. What was Joo-Heon planning? Then something strange happened. A delicious aroma began coming from the mochi relic. The soldiers inhaled the scent. Their expressions suddenly changed. One thought filled their minds. They needed that mochi. They needed it no matter what. Within moments, the soldiers began fighting among themselves over the relic. The room descended into complete chaos. Everyone nearby stared in confusion as the soldiers attacked one another. And while everyone was distracted, Joo-Heon quietly slipped away. Nobody even noticed him leaving. Joo-Heon eventually made it safely onto a plane. Once the plane was in the air, he opened the notebook he had taken from Sasaki. He carefully went through the prophecies she had copied. Then he found it. The prophecy concerning the Great Entombment. Joo-Heon's expression became serious. The prophecy spoke of a great calamity, a disaster in which the entire world would be consumed by an enormous tomb. Around that time, countless relics would flood into the world, changing humanity forever. Then Joo-Heon read the crucial part of the prophecy. It spoke of an underworld overflowing with greed, and within that place, the omen of a worldwide catastrophe would begin. Then came the final line. A god who understood the depths of his greed would choose to walk alongside him. Joo-Heon immediately understood. His eyes narrowed. An underground world overflowing with greed. There was only one place that could be. Midas, the underground auction house in Las Vegas. And if that prophecy was pointing toward Midas, then there was one particular person Joo-Heon needed to keep an eye on. Chairman Kwon Tae-jun. The scene shifted to Las Vegas, where Joo-Heon had just arrived after sending his men ahead to gather information about the upcoming Midas auction. He immediately met up with the men he had sent to investigate the participants. One of them handed over the information they had collected and explained that there were 3 participants whose names matched the initials. Joo-Heon quickly went through the profiles. The information was exactly what he had been looking for, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. The man cautiously asked if Joo-Heon had finally found the person he had been searching for. Joo-Heon nodded. Looking closely at one of the profiles, he was certain that the man was none other than Chairman Kwon Tae-jun. Without wasting any more time, Joo-Heon tossed the profiles onto the table and picked up the catalog containing information about the relics that would be displayed at the Midas auction. However, his expression quickly changed. Something didn't make sense. There was no god-grade relic listed anywhere in the catalog. Joo-Heon frowned. If there was no god-grade relic at the auction, then what exactly had the prophecy relic been warning him about? He continued flipping through the information, eventually noticing several other relics that were worth bidding on. Even if the mysterious god-grade relic had not revealed itself yet, there were still plenty of valuable relics he could obtain. One of the men suddenly looked at him in disbelief. Joo-Heon was actually planning to participate in the Midas auction? The man reminded him that the starting bids alone could reach around $100 million. Joo-Heon casually admitted that he didn't have that kind of money yet, but that wasn't going to stop him. He stood up with complete confidence and declared that it was time to make some money. A short while later, Joo-Heon stood in front of the countless casinos scattered throughout Las Vegas. He looked at the enormous buildings surrounding him and smiled. This was Las Vegas. The city of gambling. And if there was one place in the world where a man could make an absurd amount of money in a short period of time, this was it. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a man in a suit was receiving an urgent report over the phone. The person on the other end informed him that the prophecy relic had been completely destroyed. Not only that, but the soldiers who had been guarding it had also been defeated. The man's expression immediately became serious. He couldn't believe that all of this had been accomplished by a single person. You're saying one man did all of this? The answer came immediately. Yes, the man on the phone then asked whether they should locate Joo-Heon and deal with him before he caused even more trouble. But the man in the suit refused. There was no point in making an enemy out of someone who possessed enough power to destroy an S-grade prophecy relic. Instead, he saw an opportunity. If Joo-Heon possessed that much power, then they should bring him onto their side. Rather than wasting resources trying to eliminate him, they could simply recruit him and make use of his strength. It was far more profitable. Back in Las Vegas, Joo-Heon's men were completely stunned by what they were witnessing. They had expected their boss to gamble. They had not expected him to turn the casino into his personal ATM. Joo-Heon sat in front of a slot machine. He pulled the lever. Jackpot. He moved to another machine. Jackpot. Every machine he touched seemed to produce an incredible winning combination. The men could barely believe their eyes. How was he doing this? Joo-Heon simply collected his winnings, without showing the slightest bit of excitement. Then he pointed toward another machine. Let's move to the next one. His men stared at him in disbelief. He was already moving on before they had even recovered from the previous jackpot. Before long, a massive crowd gathered around Joo-Heon. Everyone wanted to see the strange gambler, who seemed incapable of losing. The casino employees quickly noticed what was happening. Eventually, security personnel approached him. One of the guards politely asked if Joo-Heon would cooperate with a quick inspection. This was the first time in the casino's history that someone had won so many times in succession. Joo-Heon calmly agreed. The guard searched him thoroughly. But there was nothing suspicious. The only unusual object he found was a small keychain hanging from Joo-Heon's finger. The guard held it up and asked what it was. Joo-Heon casually explained that it was nothing more than a souvenir he had purchased because he liked its appearance. Then he pressed something on it. The tiny object suddenly transformed into a small knife. Joo-Heon gave the guard a casual smile. Pretty useful, right? You can even use it as a knife. The guard stared at it in confusion. There was still nothing suspicious about it. But he had no idea that the harmless-looking keychain was actually the golden axe, one of Joo-Heon's most valuable relics. The golden axe had simply transformed itself into a harmless object to avoid detection, and its ability was precisely what Joo-Heon had been exploiting. The relic could sense the presence of valuable objects and detect where wealth was concentrated. That was how Joo-Heon knew exactly which machines were going to pay out. Joo-Heon turned toward his men. That's enough. We're moving to the next place. As Joo-Heon walked through the crowded casino floor, he noticed just how packed the building had become. Suddenly, a man pushed through the crowd and ordered everyone to move aside. Don't block the aisle. A VIP is coming through. Joo-Heon glanced over. The moment he saw the man, his expression became cold. He recognized him immediately. You see who? Chairman Kwon Tae-jun's right-hand man. He looked much younger than Joo-Heon remembered, but that irritating face was unmistakable. And if Yoo Si-woo was here, Joo-Heon's eyes shifted. Sure enough, another group appeared behind him. Chairman Kwon Tae-jun. The moment Joo-Heon saw the old man, memories of his previous life flooded back. He remembered being betrayed. He remembered being abandoned inside a tomb. He remembered lying helplessly on the ground, surrounded by blood, while Kwon Tae-jun left him behind to die. Joo-Heon's eyes became colder, but Kwon Tae-jun didn't recognize him. Of course he didn't. At this point in time, Joo-Heon was still a complete stranger to them. Kwon Tae-jun and Yoo Si-woo simply walked past him without giving him a second glance. Joo-Heon smiled. That was perfect. They had no idea who they were dealing with. This time, he wouldn't allow Kwon Tae-jun to monopolize the best relics. This auction belonged to him now. Just then, one of Joo-Heon's men hurried toward him carrying the bag containing their relics. He looked worried. The bag is acting strangely. Joo-Heon immediately opened it. Inside was the silver axe. The relic was reacting violently to something nearby. It seemed to be warning him that an enemy was approaching. Joo-Heon frowned. He already knew the difference between his two axes. The golden axe could detect valuable treasures and identify where the greatest profits were. The silver axe, on the other hand, was capable of detecting people who posed a threat to its master's treasures. But what exactly had it sensed? Joo-Heon looked around. And then, the chaos began. Two men suddenly started fighting in the middle of the casino. Each accused the other of stealing his money. Nearby, a woman screamed that her money had disappeared as well. Another man checked his phone and discovered that his stocks were suddenly crashing. His friends stared at the screen in disbelief. Something was terribly wrong. Within moments, the entire casino descended into chaos. People were accusing each other of theft. Stocks were collapsing. Phones that had been working perfectly only moments earlier suddenly stopped functioning. Everyone seemed to be suffering from some kind of misfortune. Joo-Heon slowly looked around. Then he realized what was happening. His eyes shifted toward the entrance. A beautiful young woman had just walked into the casino. She had long blonde hair and an elegant appearance that immediately drew the attention of everyone around her. Joo-Heon's expression darkened. He recognized her. Irene Holton, the youngest daughter of the immensely wealthy Holton family. And unlike the people around him, Joo-Heon knew exactly how dangerous she really was. In his previous life, people who possessed god-grade relics had risen to terrifying positions of power. They were eventually given titles such as the King of Destiny, the King of Conquest, and the King of Abundance. But among all of those powerful relic users, Irene Holton had possessed one of the most terrifying abilities of them all. She had become known as the King of Bankruptcy. Simply being around Irene could bring unimaginable misfortune. Fortunes disappeared. People became sick. Businesses collapsed. Markets crashed. Entire companies could be driven into bankruptcy simply because Irene's relic had affected them. Joo-Heon remembered the devastation she had caused in his previous life, and he had absolutely no intention of getting involved with her again. His immediate conclusion was simple. Avoid Irene Holton at all costs. He turned toward his thugs and ordered them. Get your stuff. We're leaving. Right now. Joo-Heon had barely taken a few steps toward the exit when he heard a cheerful voice behind him. It was Irene Hilton. Joo-Heon's expression instantly darkened. Of all the people he could have encountered in Las Vegas, she was the last person he wanted anywhere near him. He increased his pace, hoping he could reach the exit before she caught up. The moment Joo-Heon reached for the door handle, a strange bolt of energy suddenly shot through him. Crack! A powerful force repelled him from the door, sending him stumbling backward. A system window immediately appeared before his eyes. Another warning appeared. Cold sweat formed on Joo-Heon's forehead. Seriously? Before he could even process what was happening, Irene finally caught up to him. She grabbed his hand with an excited smile. Would you like to talk with me for a little while? The moment she touched him, another system notification appeared. Joo-Heon immediately ripped his hand away. Stay away from me. Irene froze. She quickly apologized, looking genuinely embarrassed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you. Then she remembered something. Are you the person who kept winning jackpots at the casino? Joo-Heon stared at her. I've been looking everywhere for you, Irene continued. Could you tell me your secret? How did you manage to win so much? Joo-Heon didn't even hesitate. You've got the wrong person. He turned away. The three thugs behind him couldn't believe what they were seeing. Who in their right mind would reject a beautiful woman who had approached him first? One of them became especially frustrated. Boss, what are you doing? Who turns down a woman like that? He stepped forward before Joo-Heon could stop him. Wait here. I'll handle this for you. The thug approached Irene with a confident smile. I can tell you his secret. Then he leaned closer. But first, how about dinner with me? Joo-Heon sighed. They're making everything worse. And sure enough, within seconds, the consequences arrived. All three thugs suddenly collapsed onto the floor. Ugh, my stomach. I feel like I'm dying. A strange reddish aura surrounded their bodies. Joo-Heon looked at them with disbelief. Idiots. Irene called out to him. Wait. Joo-Heon ignored her and continued walking. Unfortunately, the moment he turned away, he walked straight into a wall. Bam! He grabbed his forehead. Irene hurried over. Are you okay? Joo-Heon slowly turned toward her with an irritated expression. Who do you think is responsible for all of this? Irene lowered her head. That's exactly the problem. Joo-Heon paused. Irene looked genuinely troubled. Everyone around me always seems to suffer from terrible misfortune. People get hurt, lose money, or suffer unexpected disasters whenever they're near me. That's why I want to become luckier. If I could become lucky, maybe the people around me would finally stop suffering. Joo-Heon stared at her. Her expression was so innocent that he almost couldn't connect her to the woman he remembered. This is supposed to be the king of bankruptcy? In his previous life, Irene Hilton had been one of the most terrifying relic users in the world. Wherever she went, financial disasters followed. Companies collapsed, fortunes vanished, and entire businesses were destroyed. Yet the woman standing in front of him seemed completely unaware of the true nature of her power. Irene looked at him hopefully. Can you tell me your secret to becoming lucky? Then she quickly added, if you want money, I can pay you as much as you want. Joo-Heon was bewildered. She's completely different from the person I remember. Just then, another system notification appeared. Joo-Heon's eyes widened. He He immediately remembered the silver pill he had consumed earlier, the consumable relic that had granted him the tolerance skill. A sly grin slowly spread across his face. If being around this woman increases my tolerance, then Irene wasn't a threat anymore. She was an opportunity. And if she stays near me, everyone else at the auction will probably suffer one disaster after another. Joo-Heon had just found a way to kill two birds with one stone. He looked back at Irene. Fine, I'll help you. Her face immediately brightened. But I'm a little busy right now. I have something important to take care of first. Irene nodded. I understand. I'd like to discuss the details of our deal properly, Joo-Heon continued. But right now, I have to go to the auction. He paused before casually asking, if you want, you can come with me. Irene's face lit up. I'd love to. Not long afterward, Joo-Heon and Irene arrived at the auction. The auctioneer stepped onto the stage and welcomed the remaining guests before officially announcing the start of the 74th annual Midas auction. However, the venue looked strangely empty. Because of Irene's misfortune, nearly two-thirds of the original participants had already left after suffering one bizarre problem after another, and the disasters weren't limited to ordinary guests. One of Kwon Tae-jun's factories had suddenly caught fire, yet despite everything going wrong around him, Kwon Tae-jun remained at the auction. Joo-Heon immediately noticed. Interesting. If Kwon was willing to ignore a burning factory and remain here, there had to be something in this auction that he considered more valuable than everything he was losing outside. Irene watched the items being brought onto the stage with excitement. Are you not going to bid on any of these? Joo-Heon calmly shook his head. The things I'm interested in will appear later. While pretending to watch the auction, Joo-Heon continued studying Irene. The more he observed her, the more confused he became. She was nothing like the Irene he remembered. She didn't even seem to understand relics. Could it be? Joo-Heon began connecting the pieces. If the relic had possessed Irene without her knowledge, then perhaps the woman he remembered had not always been cruel or corrupted. Maybe she had once been an innocent girl. But after being forced to live with a relic that constantly brought misfortune to everyone around her, her entire life could have been destroyed. And eventually, her personality might have changed completely. His thoughts were interrupted by Irene. Thank you. Joo-Heon looked at her. For agreeing to help me, she explained. Just being able to tell someone about my worries makes me feel much better. Joo-Heon smiled faintly. I didn't really do anything. Irene smiled brightly. But I'm genuinely happy. The instant her mood improved, the system reacted. Joo-Heon's expression immediately changed. A tremendous aura exploded outward. Boom! The entire auction hall shook. People screamed and looked around in panic. Some thought another earthquake had struck. Joo-Heon's relics began trembling violently. Joo-Heon gritted his teeth. So that's how it works. The happier Irene became, the stronger her relic's influence grew. He immediately turned toward her. Calm down. Irene blinked. I'm sorry. She quickly tried to suppress her excitement. A few moments later, another system notification appeared. Joo-Heon finally exhaled. The auctioneer nervously looked around. It seems we just experienced a minor earthquake. Fortunately, everything appears to be fine now. The auction resumed. But Joo-Heon quickly noticed something strange. The participants were becoming increasingly irrational. People were arguing over trivial items. Others were bidding absurd amounts of money. Some were practically fighting over objects that weren't even worth a fraction of what they were paying. Joo-Heon immediately understood. Irene's relic is still affecting them, and he wasn't about to waste such an opportunity. He turned toward Irene and began discussing their deal. He reassured her that he would solve her problem. The happier Irene became, the stronger her relic grew. And the stronger her relic became, the more irrational the other bidders became. They started throwing fortunes at useless items. Joo-Heon simply watched and smiled. Perfect. Meanwhile, Kwon Tae-jun remained surprisingly calm. Joo-Heon narrowed his eyes. So he isn't being affected much. He quickly realized why. Kwon's dominance was extremely high. Still, Joo-Heon knew far more about relics than the old man did. Whenever Kwon Tae-jun showed interest in an item that Joo-Heon knew was practically worthless, Joo-Heon would deliberately raise the price before suddenly backing out. Kwon would then be forced to pay an outrageous amount for it. Little by little, Joo-Heon acquired nearly every relic he actually wanted. But one thing bothered him. The God-class relic mentioned in the prophecy had still not appeared. Then the auctioneer suddenly announced something unexpected. We will now present a special item that was not included in the original catalog. The entire room quieted down. This is the mysterious almond sapling that has recently been making headlines around the world. Joo-Heon froze. Across the room, Kwon Tae-jun also stared at the stage. A small tree was brought out in a pot. The moment Joo-Heon saw it, his eyes widened. He recognized it immediately. The tiny tree was not an ordinary plant. It was the herb of eternal life. a god-class healing relic. Joo-Heon raised his hand for the herb of eternal life, and the auctioneer immediately announced him as the first bidder. But before the bid could go any further, Kwon Tae-jun raised his hand and outbid him. Joo-Heon instantly understood what had happened. Kwon had recognized the tree's value as well. Long ago, the legendary emperor who ruled over ancient China had desperately searched for the herb of eternal life, believing it could grant him immortality, and the small almond tree standing before them was none other than that very relic. In Joo-Heon's previous life, his body had been destroyed by the overwhelming effects of relics. His flesh had been pushed to its limits, and without the fruits of this tree, his body would have eventually turned to dust. That tree had literally been his lifeline. Back then, Joo-Heon had been forced to perform every dirty job Kwon demanded just to receive its fruits. He had practically lived with a noose around his neck, completely dependent on Kwon for his survival. Now, everything was happening all over again. Joo-Heon realized that Kwon must have obtained the tree from this very auction in his previous life. If Kwon managed to take it again, Joo-Heon could end up walking down the exact same path as before. There was no way he could allow that. This time, the tree had to be his. The auctioneer, meanwhile, continued explaining why the relic was so popular. Apparently, its fruit was extremely effective at restoring male vitality. Joo-Heon's expression immediately became awkward. These idiots. They have absolutely no idea what this thing really is. What kind of misunderstanding could turn a divine-level relic capable of sustaining life into nothing more than a supposed aphrodisiac? Even Kwon Tae-jun looked slightly embarrassed. The auctioneer smiled and announced that, judging by everyone's enthusiasm, the starting price would be $200,000. Hands immediately shot into the air. The price began climbing rapidly. Joo-Heon watched in disbelief. It's not even a sex drug. But the bidders clearly didn't care. Then Kwon raised the price to $10 million. The competition became even more intense. One bid followed another until the price crossed $50 million. Joo-Heon's expression grew tense as the numbers continued climbing. Then Kwon calmly raised the bid again. $100 million. The room fell into a brief silence. Joo-Heon stared at the enormous number. There was no way he could compete with Kwon financially. But then his eyes shifted toward Irina Hilton. Just as the auctioneer was preparing to close the bidding, Irina calmly raised her hand. $150 million. The entire auction hall erupted in shock. Joo-Heon couldn't help but smile. Perfect. It's time for her to take over. Kwon's expression darkened. After a moment, he reluctantly raised the bid to $160 million. Irina didn't even hesitate. $200 million. Kwon's face twisted with irritation. Why did she suddenly jump into this auction and cause such a commotion? Yoo-Seho, standing beside him, immediately realized how serious the situation had become. Chairman Kwon, we should stop here. He quietly reminded Kwon that Irina was the youngest daughter of the Hilton family, one of the most powerful business families in the world. Kwon refused to back down. He raised his hand again. $220 million. Yoo-Seho desperately tried to stop him. Chairman, we can't compete with the Hilton family financially. But Irina simply smiled. $300 million. Kwon was about to raise his hand again, but Yoo-Seho grabbed his arm and stopped him. Please, Chairman, we have to stop. Kwon glared at his subordinate, but eventually remained silent. The auctioneer looked around the room before finally bringing down the hammer. The winner was Irina Hilton. The herb of eternal life had been sold for an astonishing $300 million. Later, Joo-Heon and Irina stood at the collection counter waiting for the relic to be prepared. The receptionist politely asked them to wait a moment while the item was brought out. Joo-Heon thanked her before turning toward Irina. That must have been a painful expense, even for you. Irina smiled. Not at all. If you're really going to solve my problem, then it's worth it. She hesitated for a moment before asking, is there some way you can share your good luck with me? Maybe a talisman or something? Joo-Heon immediately shook his head. No, I'm not giving you anything like that, Irina blinked. Joo-Heon continued. Instead, I'm taking something you already have. He looked at her seriously. There should be some strange object following you wherever you go. If you give that to me, your misfortune should disappear. In Joo-Heon's mind, the plan was perfect. He would get rid of Irina's bankruptcy relic, solve her problem, and obtain the relic for himself. It was literally killing two birds with one stone. Irina thought about it for a moment. Then she shook her head. But there isn't anything like that following me. Joo-Heon frowned. That was strange. He was certain there had to be something. Then tell me something else. Do you have a tattoo that suddenly appeared on your body? Irina's expression immediately changed. That reaction was enough. Joo-Heon understood. So that's where it is. Tattoos that mysteriously appeared on a person's body were one of the characteristics of personal relics. Joo-Heon remembered Sasaki Yuka's tattoo as well. It was proof that she had formed a contract with the prophecy relic and become its owner. Unlike ordinary relics that could be used by multiple people, personal relics were connected directly to their owners and could only be used by them. Irina quickly pulled out her phone. I can show you a picture. She found the image and handed the phone to Joo-Heon. The moment he saw the strange markings covering parts of her body, his expression changed. Joo-Heon recognized what he was looking at. It was a parasitic relic. These relics were extremely rare. Instead of simply choosing an owner like ordinary personal relics, they forcibly entered a person's body and lived inside their host. And unlike ordinary possession-type relics, this one couldn't simply be taken away. Joo-Heon handed the phone back. I thought this would be an easy problem to solve, but apparently it isn't. Irina looked disappointed. Joo-Heon softened his expression. Let's take our time and find a solution. He gave her his phone number so they could stay in contact. Irina smiled gratefully. Joo-Heon, however, had another thought entirely. If I can't remove her power right now, then I'll just keep her around. Having someone with a divine-level relic like Irina as an ally could prove extremely useful in the future. Just then, the receptionist returned carrying the almond sapling along with the other items Joo-Heon had purchased. She informed him that he could take everything with him once the payment had been completed. She also offered to arrange transportation for the items. Joo-Heon declined. I'll handle it myself. He then pulled out his phone and called someone. No one answered. Joo-Heon's expression immediately darkened. He already knew what had happened. Elsewhere, the three thugs Joo-Heon had hired were running through the streets with the money they had taken. They were convinced they had gotten away with it. Joo-Heon was in Las Vegas, and there was no way he would track them down. Eventually, they stopped to catch their breath. We're rich. The three men began celebrating. Unfortunately for them, their celebration didn't last long. A silver axe suddenly flew past one of their faces and buried itself deep into the wall behind them. The men froze. A figure slowly emerged from the darkness. You've got some serious guts, trying to run away with my money. The three thugs nearly collapsed from fear. They couldn't understand how Joo-Heon had found them so quickly. Joo-Heon simply smiled. The silver axe told me exactly where they were. Now it's time for your punishment. The rock suddenly began glowing. A powerful aura erupted from it, and the ordinary-looking stone transformed into a massive stone tablet. At the same time, a gigantic stone pillar appeared behind Joo-Heon. The three men stared in confusion. Joo-Heon calmly explained what they were looking at. It was the Code of Hammurabi, the legendary collection of laws created by King Hammurabi of ancient Babylon. And among its most famous principles was the phrase, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The relic possessed a terrifying counter-type ability. It could return an attack launched against its user back to the person who initiated it. Joo-Heon had only obtained the relic at the auction earlier that day, and now seemed like the perfect opportunity to test it. He raised his hand and spoke calmly. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and a betrayal for a betrayal. Suddenly, strands of energy resembling lightning shot toward the three thugs. They wrapped tightly around their hands. The men screamed in panic. Joo-Heon watched them calmly. So that's how it works. The relic could essentially counter an enemy's actions. But there was something even more interesting. Because the Code of Hammurabi represented a law, its power could potentially restrict not only what the target had already done, but also what they could do in the future. A moment later, the glowing restraints disappeared. The three men stared at their hands in confusion. Joo-Heon looked at them. Nothing will happen to you as long as you don't betray me. His expression turned cold. But if you betray me again, he paused, your bodies will be torn to pieces. The three men immediately dropped to their knees. We'll never betray you again. Joo-Heon nodded. With the matter settled, he turned his attention toward the almond sapling. He removed it from its pot and carefully placed it on the floor. The sapling immediately complained. It's embarrassing to be taken out of my pot like this. Joo-Heon ignored it. He looked toward the three thugs. Your new job is simple. You're going to take care of this tree and harvest its fruit. The men stared at the tiny sapling. That was it? After everything they had gone through, their new job was simply taking care of a plant? Meanwhile, the sapling continued complaining. Put me back in my pot. Joo-Heon sighed. Stop wasting time and get to work. The tree's constant screaming had already begun getting on his nerves. The three men cautiously approached it. Then, instead of doing anything complicated, they began gently massaging the tree. Something unexpected happened. The tree became quiet. Then its branches relaxed. It actually seemed happy. Joo-Heon stared at the scene. I didn't expect that. Apparently, the three men had surprisingly high affinity with the relic. That explained everything. The previous night, Joo-Heon had tried to form a contract with the sapling himself. It had ended in disaster. The tree had gone completely berserk, making it impossible for him to establish a proper connection. But these three men were different. They had a natural affinity that the tree actually liked. As the men carefully placed the sapling back into its pot, the tree suddenly cried out, "Ow, that hurts. Be more gentle." The three men froze. Then something even stranger happened. The sapling spoke through one of the men's mouths. The others stared at him in disbelief. Joo-Heon's eyes narrowed. He finally understood. The herb of eternal life preferred people with high affinity rather than those who relied heavily on domination. And judging by what he was seeing, these three idiots were surprisingly perfect for the job. Just then, Joo-Heon's phone began to ring. The number looked familiar. Joo-Heon immediately understood what that meant. The fact that they were contacting him directly was proof that their investigation had already begun. They had started digging into his identity, his movements, and the relics he possessed. He calmly answered the call. "Is this Joo-Heon?" The voice on the other end belonged to an older man. "This is Kwon Tae-jun." Joo-Heon immediately recognized him. "What do you want?" Kwon didn't bother with small talk. "I'd like to discuss the tree you obtained from Arena Hilton at the auction." Joo-Heon's expression remained completely indifferent. "I don't have anything to discuss with you." And with that, he hung up. Kwon stared at the phone in disbelief. Before he could say anything, Yoo Si-woo stepped forward. "Chairman, I'll bring that tree back." He paused before asking, "May I use one of the company's relics?" Si-woo was confident. As far as he knew, Joo-Heon was nothing more than an ordinary person who had somehow managed to get lucky at the auction. Taking the tree from him shouldn't be difficult. If he could resolve this situation himself, he could also earn some recognition in Kwon's eyes. Meanwhile, Joo-Heon was sitting quietly at a bar. He had already noticed that the silver axe had been reacting for several days. That could only mean one thing. Someone was tracking him. So the investigation has finally started. Joo-Heon smiled faintly. "It took them longer than I expected." Just then, a voice came from behind him. "Are you Joo-Heon?" Joo-Heon glanced over his shoulder. It was Yoo Si-woo. He didn't answer. Instead, he simply turned away. "Just Si-woo?" Joo-Heon's eyes narrowed. "They're still underestimating me." He could already sense the relic on Si-woo. At least the man had brought a relic with him. That made things slightly more interesting. Si-woo's expression darkened. He slammed his hand onto the table. "Can't you hear me? It's common courtesy to answer when someone speaks to you." Joo-Heon suddenly drove his elbow into Si-woo's stomach. Bam! Si-woo collapsed to the floor. Joo-Heon stood up and smiled innocently. "Sorry, your sudden shouting startled me." Suho slowly got back on his feet, furious. "Don't play dumb. We met at the Midas auction, didn't we?" Joo-Heon pretended to think for a moment. "Oh, right, I remember you now." He smiled. "You're Chairman Kwon's goldfish poop." Suho's face immediately turned red with rage. At that moment, a system window appeared before Joo-Heon. Joo-Heon immediately understood. So this is still his weakness. Even in his previous life, Yoo Si-woo had always tried to act confident and powerful, but beneath that arrogant exterior was a mountain of insecurity. Push the right buttons, and he would lose his temper. And once his rationality disappeared, his ability to control high-ranking relics would weaken as well. That was because dominance was directly influenced by the user's mental state. The more unstable Si-woo became, the less control he had over his relics. Back in the present, Joo-Heon casually looked at him. "By the way, I received a call from Chairman Kwon earlier." He smiled. "Does he really want that tree that badly?" Talk about being desperate. Hearing his chairman being insulted pushed Si-woo over the edge. He immediately pulled out a relic bottle. "You're asking for it." Si-woo activated the relic. Nothing happened. Joo-Heon smirked. He grabbed Si-woo by the head and slammed his face into the table. Bang! Before Si-woo could react, Joo-Heon snatched the relic from his hand. Joo-Heon looked down at him. "Someone with weakening dominance like you can't properly use a relic." Si-woo's eyes widened. "How? How do you know about relics?" Joo-Heon smiled. "Of course I know." He easily restrained Si-woo before examining the relic he had taken. "So you're a possession-type relic." Joo-Heon's eyes gleamed. "From now on, your new owner is me." The relic immediately responded to Joo-Heon's overwhelming dominance. Joo-Heon opened the container and poured some of the liquid inside onto Si-woo. Si-woo's expression changed instantly. "Stop, please." But it was already too late. This was the zombie powder of the voodoo priest, an A-rank possession-type relic. Voodoo had developed among enslaved Africans, and one of its beliefs held that those who committed sins would eventually be punished by being transformed into zombies. Those beliefs, rumors, and stories accumulated over generations. Eventually, enough people believed them that the concept itself became powerful enough to create a relic. The zombie powder had a terrifying effect. Touching or inhaling it could temporarily destroy a person's sanity and turn them into a mindless zombie. The powder began spreading through Suho's body. His eyes became empty. His expression went blank. Within moments, Yu Siwo was reduced to a shambling, mindless zombie. Joo-Heon smiled. Getting defeated by your own relic? He shook his head. What a pathetic way to lose. He looked toward the street. This should keep Kwon occupied for a while. If Kwon had been tracking him for days, then Joo-Heon had just bought himself some valuable time. The next day, Chairman Kwon arrived at the police station. The moment he entered, he saw Yu Siwoo standing in front of him. Or rather, what was left of him. Siwoo was behaving like a mindless zombie. Kwon's expression immediately darkened. What the hell is that idiot doing? An employee standing nearby nervously answered. He was found wandering around the street, acting like a zombie. The police are currently running drug tests on him. Kwon's face twitched. Forget about Suho. Find the relic he was carrying. The employee hesitated. When we found him, he didn't have it. Kwon immediately understood. His expression became cold. Joo-Heon. He picked up his phone. There was only one person he wanted to speak to now. Call attorney Lee Jin-ah. Meanwhile, Joo-Heon and the three thugs were making their way through the airport. The three men were completely exhausted. They had been carrying Joo-Heon's luggage the entire way. One of them finally couldn't take it anymore. Boss, do we really have to carry all of this? Joo-Heon glanced back. Yes, he smiled. This is our war chest. Inside those bags were enough relics to completely change the balance of power. Joo-Heon was satisfied with what he had managed to gather. He currently possessed the Egyptian funeral blade, the golden axe, the silver axe, the life rope, and Muramasa. Then there were all the relics he had obtained at the Midas auction, the Code of Hammurabi, Shakespeare's feather, Marie Antoinette's necklace, and most importantly, the herb of eternal life. On top of that, he had taken the zombie powder of the voodoo priest, the foxtail millet, and Homer's glasses from Yu Siwoo. For Joo-Heon, this was more than enough to serve as his starting capital, and from this point onward, the number of relics in his possession would only continue to grow. But just as he was thinking about his collection, someone called out to him, "Mr. Joo-Heon?" A woman approached him. She introduced herself calmly. "My name is Lee Jin-ah. I'm an attorney working for TKBM." Joo-Heon's expression didn't change. He already knew. So this is their next move. They sat down at a table inside the airport. Lee Jin-ah opened her folder. "Please calm down. Chairman Kwon holds your abilities in very high regard." She slid a contract across the table. "TKBM would like to formally recruit you." Joo-Heon glanced at the document. The contract offered $100 million, along with a separate monthly salary. It also stated that TKBM wouldn't interfere with his personal life. All he had to do was work under TKBM. Joo-Heon smiled. "So that's what this is about." He leaned back. "I thought there was some complicated reason you came here." He tapped the contract. "But you're just asking me to sign a slave contract." Lee Jin-ah's expression hardened. "Watch your mouth." She leaned forward. "What do you think will happen if Chairman Kwon decides to take action against you for stealing Yu Siwoo's relics?" Her tone became colder. "TKBM has enough influence to make places like galleries disappear without a trace. Your subordinates could suddenly become seriously ill." She stared directly at him. "And you wouldn't be an exception." Joo-Heon smiled. "So basically, I either work for you or I die." He reached into his bag. "Then let me give you some advice." He pulled out the zombie powder. "When picking a fight with someone, you should always make sure your opponent is within your league." He held up the relic. "If you value your life, that is." Lee Jin-ah's expression changed. Joo-Heon smiled. "Because right now, you're the one who might disappear without a trace." Lee Jin-ah remained confident. "You wouldn't dare use a relic here. There are too many witnesses." Joo-Heon uncorked the container. "Do you really think I wouldn't?" Lee Jin-ah's eyes widened. She immediately shoved the table toward Joo-Heon and activated her own relic. A massive stream of water exploded toward him. Joo-Heon remained completely calm. He activated the Code of Hammurabi. An eye for an eye. The stone tablet glowed. A tooth for a tooth. The water attack suddenly reversed direction. A water cannon for a water cannon. The entire blast was reflected straight back at Lee Jin-ah. Boom! She was thrown to the ground. People nearby immediately turned toward the commotion. Some pulled out their phones and started recording. Joo-Heon calmly walked toward her with the zombie powder in his hand. "Looks like we have an audience now." He smiled. "So we'd better finish this quickly." Lee Jin-ah's confidence finally disappeared. Fear appeared in her eyes. "Please, stop!" Then boom! A loud explosion echoed through the airport. Security personnel immediately rushed toward the area. One of the soldiers shouted over the radio, "We heard an explosion coming from the cafe." Another voice responded, "It could be a terrorist attack." Inside the cafe, Joo-Heon stood calmly amid the chaos. In his hand was another unexpected relic, the ink of a Montmartre painter. Joo-Heon looked at it with interest. Not bad. He had obtained another relic without even expecting it. But before he could examine it properly, a familiar voice suddenly echoed in his head. It was the voice of the mysterious Crow Relic. Follow my voice. Quickly, this place is in danger. Joo-Heon's expression darkened. One of his men looked at him strangely. Boss, what crow are you talking about? Joo-Heon looked toward him. None of them seemed to hear the voice, so I'm the only one who can hear it. The Crow Relic continued. Hurry, follow my voice. Joo-Heon's patience finally snapped. Don't order me around. He began swinging his fists through the air. You sent me back in time without even explaining anything. He glared at the empty space. You turned my entire life into some ridiculous game, and now you suddenly show up and start giving me orders? The Crow Relic remained silent for a moment. Then its voice returned. You'll regret ignoring me. Joo-Heon scoffed. He still didn't trust the relic. But then footsteps echoed through the room. Someone had entered. A familiar figure slowly approached. Chairman Kwon Tae-jun. Joo-Heon's 3 men immediately panicked. Boss, what's going on? Why is the chairman of TKBM here? Joo-Heon didn't answer. He already knew. The danger the Crow Relic had warned him about had finally arrived. Kwon raised his hand. Purple lightning suddenly erupted. It wrapped around all 3 of Joo-Heon's men, binding them instantly. The 3 thugs screamed as the powerful aura overwhelmed them. Joo-Heon narrowed his eyes. Kwon had finally made his move, and this time he hadn't come to negotiate. Joo-Heon immediately drew his knife and moved behind Kwon, pressing the blade against his throat. That was pretty uncalled for. Using your dominance on ordinary people? Kwon slightly tilted his head, clearly impressed. You're better than I expected. You know how to handle relics, and your movements are quite impressive. Purple lightning suddenly crackled around Kwon's hands. Joo-Heon instantly backed away as Kwon unleashed a surge of purple energy. Hyun and the other thugs were immediately wrapped in the lightning, but a moment later, the attack suddenly vanished. Kwon stared in disbelief. His relic's power had simply disappeared while he was using it. Joo-Heon calmly held up 2 black tickets. I guess you haven't noticed yet. Aren't these what you're looking for? Kwon's eyes widened. When had Joo-Heon stolen them? The answer was obvious to Joo-Heon. His greatest skill had always been pickpocketing. Even in his previous life, Kwon had repeatedly praised him for it. Joo-Heon had slipped the tickets out of Kwon's pocket without him noticing. A system window appeared before him. Joo-Heon frowned. His dominance still wasn't strong enough to subdue a relic of this level. Kwon smiled as a massive purple aura began pouring from his body. You people certainly have a death wish. Joo-Heon knew exactly what Kwon possessed, the Relic of Conquest. With it, Kwon could dominate and control his enemies. But there was another problem. Kwon's relic was parasitic, just like Irene's. Joo-Heon couldn't tell where Kwon had hidden it inside his body. On top of that, Kwon was wearing a defensive relic that essentially turned him into an impregnable fortress. The entire airport began to tremble. Joo-Heon glanced around before looking back at Kwon. You're not exactly being subtle. Do you really want the whole world to learn about relics? Kwon remained calm. I'll have to do a little cleanup, but it will be far less work than letting all of you live. He raised his hand. Let's end this here and now. Kwon activated his relic. An overwhelming pressure instantly descended upon Joo-Heon and the others, forcing them toward the ground. Then a voice echoed from above. Foolish humans. A strange raven suddenly appeared in the air. Call back your powers immediately. This place is dangerous. Kwon stared at the raven in confusion. The raven continued. Vile jackals and hounds slumber within this place. If you continue, you will awaken them. Kwon smiled. If they appear in front of me, that will save me the trouble of finding them. Joo-Heon narrowed his eyes. Jackals and hounds. Did that mean the relics were already here? Before he could think further, Kwon increased the pressure of his dominance. The raven called them fools once again before disappearing. Then, boom. The entire airport began shaking violently. Even Kwon looked startled. Joo-Heon quickly looked around as multiple system windows appeared before him. The ground began tearing apart. Ancient statues erupted from beneath the airport as enormous structures pushed their way toward the surface. Joo-Heon's expression changed. He remembered the prophecy. In January, the time will be ripe in the underground garden of greed. The Great Catastrophe that plunges the world into chaos will begin. The airport was completely destroyed. Massive Egyptian structures and pyramids emerged from the ground. Joo-Heon stared outside in disbelief. He knew exactly what this meant. The great tombification had begun. Hyun hurried toward him. Joo-Heon, what the hell is happening? Joo-Heon sighed. We're done for. Thanks to Chairman Kwon, we're trapped in here. Kwon himself looked stunned. This has never happened before. Yun looked between them. Then what are we supposed to do? How do we get out? Joo-Heon glanced toward the enormous tombs surrounding them. We don't. He paused. Right now, countless tombs like this are appearing all over the world. Suddenly, a furious voice thundered from above. Then who are you? Everyone looked up. A gigantic white hound hovered in the air. Its sharp claws and enormous fangs making it look like a creature straight out of a nightmare. Joo-Heon immediately recognized it. Set, in ancient Egyptian mythology, Set was the god of the desert, darkness, destruction, chaos, and evil. Another massive black hound appeared beside him. How dare these pathetic humans disturb our rest? Hyun stared at the second creature. There's another one? Joo-Heon shook his head. Not just another one. There are two divine relics here. The black hound was Anubis, and hanging around its neck was a talking necklace, the relic of Osiris. Osiris was the god of fertility and the afterlife, while Anubis was the god of funerary rites and the guide of the dead into the afterlife. Joo-Heon couldn't help but smile. 3 god-class relics in one place. No wonder the entire world was being swallowed by tombs. Anubis looked down at them. How could humans possess enough power to awaken all of us? Set immediately dismissed the idea. Nonsense. It must be nothing more than coincidence. But Set suddenly stopped. He smelled something familiar. Before he could say anything, Osiris interrupted. Set, where is your dignity? Set's expression darkened. You expect me to maintain my dignity while sharing the same air with humans? Joo-Heon silently stared at him. This guy is seriously in a foul mood. Set bared his fangs. Only after we have killed every last one of these worms will my anger finally subside. Joo-Heon immediately activated the code of Hammurabi. A massive stone tablet appeared behind him. He stared directly at Set. Bring it on. Just don't expect to walk away unscathed. Set laughed. What do you expect to accomplish with that pathetic relic? It is far beneath our rank. His expression became vicious. You dare look down on us, human? Set launched his attack. Joo-Heon calmly activated the code of Hammurabi. An eye for an eye. A tooth for a tooth. The incoming attack was instantly reflected. The force slammed straight back into Set and Anubis. Both relics were struck. Joo-Heon smiled. That's what happens when you judge your opponent by rank alone. Set suddenly froze. His nose twitched. That smell. He stared at Joo-Heon. The crow. Set turned toward the others. I smell the crow on that human. It was inside the attack he just used. Osiris looked shocked. The same traitorous crow that sided with humans? But it was sealed away long ago. He glanced at Set. Are you sure your nose isn't playing tricks on you? Set exploded in anger. How dare you insult my nose? My nose never lies. Joo-Heon watched them argue and quietly thought about the situation. Why weren't these 3 fighting each other from the beginning? Especially with Set and Osiris together, a conflict between them seemed inevitable. Then Anubis stepped forward. My trial will be punishment enough for this arrogant human. Golden light suddenly surrounded Joo-Heon. His surroundings transformed. A massive golden scale appeared beneath his feet, with a single feather resting on the opposite side. Anubis appeared before him in gigantic form. This is the scale of judgment. It shall decide your fate. Joo-Heon smirked. He already knew about this trial. In his previous life, the owner of the Anubis relic had told him everything. The trial consisted of simple questions. All he needed to do was answer them correctly. This should be easy. Anubis raised his voice. Before the 42 judges, I shall ask you 42 questions. Answer them all correctly, and you will pass. His expression became cold. But if you lie, you will pay dearly. Joo-Heon remained completely unfazed. Just like I heard, the trial had begun. Anubis asked the first question. Have you never stolen? Joo-Heon froze. What kind of question is that? He couldn't simply answer yes. He had stolen countless things throughout his life. Anubis laughed when he saw his hesitation. So you cannot answer? Wait, I'm still thinking. But Anubis immediately asked the next question. Have you never told a lie? Joo-Heon's expression darkened. He was completely backed into a corner. There was no way he could clear this trial if Anubis kept asking questions like these. The questions themselves were simple, but Joo-Heon finally understood why the previous owner of the Anubis relic had said the trial was easy. That owner had been a child who had barely lived long enough to commit any real sins, would naturally have an easy time answering these questions. But Joo-Heon? He had lived an entirely different life. Anubis slowly raised his enormous claw. That is enough. Judgment time. He didn't even bother asking the remaining questions. All humans are sinful. Anubis grabbed Joo-Heon and held him over a gigantic black pit. Judgment has been passed. His voice echoed through the darkness. Make yourself comfortable in hell. With that, Anubis released him. Joo-Heon plunged into the abyss. He fell for what felt like an eternity, before finally landing in a desolate wasteland. Bones and skulls covered the ground in every direction. Joo-Heon slowly stood up. I'm still alive, but where the hell am I? Then the ground began to move. Several undead creatures crawled toward him. Joo-Heon picked up a nearby bone and stared at the approaching horde. What the hell is this? A whole army of zombies? He tightened his grip. Are you really going to make me suffer before I die? The undead charged. Joo-Heon swung the bone, smashing one creature after another aside. He fought as hard as he could, but the numbers were overwhelming. More undead crawled out of the ground. Soon, they completely surrounded him. Joo-Heon gritted his teeth. I'm not dying like this. He raised the bone again. I refuse to become dinner for a bunch of zombies. Just then, a familiar voice echoed from above. You seem to be struggling. Joo-Heon looked up. The raven appeared in the sky. It's been a while since I last aided you personally. Be grateful, Joo-Heon. Golden light suddenly exploded across the entire wasteland. Outside the trial, everyone waited in silence. Kwon stared at the enormous sphere of judgment. What in the world is taking so long? Set was becoming increasingly irritated. Why is this taking so long? Then, crack. Everyone froze. A crack appeared across the sphere. Set's eyes widened. The sphere of judgment was breaking. That was impossible. Something like this had never happened before. The cracks rapidly spread across the entire sphere until boom. The sphere of judgment shattered. Joo-Heon stepped out completely unharmed. Osiris stared at him in disbelief. How can a human possibly accomplish something like that? Then he noticed the raven hovering beside Joo-Heon. Set immediately realized what had happened. I knew you were behind this. He glared at the raven. Have you no shame, traitor? An unconscious Anubis suddenly fell out of the shattered sphere. Set's expression became even more furious. So it was you. You overpowered Anubis. He turned toward the raven. How were you even unsealed? Set's voice trembled with rage. We haven't forgotten what you did. You sided with humans and attacked our kind to steal their power for yourself. His eyes burned with hatred. Ripping you limb from limb would be far too merciful. Joo-Heon glanced at the raven. Is what he's saying true? The raven didn't answer. Set's anger reached its limit. Then I'll wipe all of you out at once. His power erupted. The ground split open, and countless mummified monsters crawled out of the earth. Set sneered at Joo-Heon. Try walking your way out of this. The raven looked at Joo-Heon. Even I can't do anything more here. Joo-Heon simply smiled. That's fine. I wasn't expecting you to. The raven tilted its head. How are you still so calm? Joo-Heon's smile widened. Because the situation is completely different now. He tightened his grip on his sword. Here, I can use my power to the fullest. The raven laughed. You really are amusing. Then it disappeared. Joo-Heon stepped forward. The first mummy charged. Slash. Its body was sliced apart. Another came from behind. Another fell. Then another. Joo-Heon tore through the army of undead one after another. Not a single monster could stop him. At the back of the battlefield, Set watched in his true form. This human has become far too arrogant. Osiris remained beside him. It is all meaningless. The army of the dead is infinite. Joo-Heon continued cutting through the endless horde. There really is no end to them. He narrowed his eyes. Then I need to find their true bodies. Joo-Heon suddenly pulled out the Egyptian dagger he had obtained earlier. The moment the dagger appeared, it began to tremble. It could sense the energy of its homeland. Joo-Heon looked at it. Can you sense where that energy is coming from? The dagger responded. Master Anubis is nearby. Joo-Heon smiled. Then show me where he is. Holding the dagger tightly, he charged forward. Every monster standing in his path was cut apart. Meanwhile, Anubis finally regained consciousness. He looked around in confusion. What is happening? Set glanced toward him. So, you finally regained consciousness. Anubis looked at the others. Did you use your powers? We had no choice, Set replied. Then Anubis froze. The relic-eating crow is here. Before he could say anything else, Joo-Heon finally sensed it. Hidden among the countless monsters were the true bodies of the relics. Set suddenly looked toward the others. We have to warn the others about the crow. But it was already too late. Joo-Heon appeared directly in front of him. Slash. Set was cut cleanly in half. Before Osiris could react, slash. Joo-Heon struck him down in a single attack. Finally, he turned toward Anubis. His sword slashed through the god's body without damaging the relic itself. Joo-Heon placed the Egyptian dagger against Anubis. Listen carefully. Anubis glared at him. The previous judgment is void. We're starting over. Don't be foolish, Anubis growled. You won't pass the trial either way. Joo-Heon smiled. This time, I definitely will. The trial began again, but this time Anubis appeared severely weakened. The moment he prepared to ask the first question, Joo-Heon grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. You're going to ask the questions exactly as I tell you. Joo-Heon tightened his grip. Understand? Anubis struggled. Joo-Heon continued. Start with the first question. He stared directly into Anubis's eyes. Have you ever stolen? Anubis refused. I will never. Joo-Heon squeezed harder before dropping him to the ground. Anubis had no choice. Have you ever stolen? Joo-Heon cupped a hand around his ear. What? I said I can't hear you. Anubis finally shouted, "Have you ever stolen, you worm?" Joo-Heon immediately kicked him in the face. "Watch your language." Anubis froze. "Ask again, and show some respect this time." Anubis clenched his teeth, but he had no choice. "Have you ever stolen, my lord?" Joo-Heon smiled. "Yes, I have." As Joo-Heon began thinking about what he wanted the next question to be, Anubis finally snapped. "Are you seriously going to make me ask all 42 questions like this?" Joo-Heon gave him a cold glare. Anubis immediately understood. He had no choice but to cooperate. Outside, everyone once again waited for the sphere of judgment to open. But then, something unexpected happened. The enormous tomb began retreating into the ground. Kwon stared in disbelief. Is it possible that Joo-Heon actually seized the relic for himself? A moment later, Joo-Heon emerged from the sphere of judgment. In his hand was the relic of Anubis. Multiple system windows immediately appeared before him. Joo-Heon stared at the flood of messages. That's a lot of notifications at once. Even more system windows appeared. Joo-Heon stared at the titles. What am I even supposed to do with titles like these? Before he could think about it any further, Kwon called out to him. "It seems I underestimated your abilities." Kwon stepped forward with a smile. "Please excuse my earlier behavior." He extended his hand. "Let me make you an offer." Joo-Heon narrowed his eyes. Kwon continued. "Why don't we work together?" He gestured toward the collapsing tomb. "As I'm sure you already understand, the world is about to change. People with abilities like yours will become incredibly valuable." His smile widened. "As the chairman of TKBM, I can guarantee you every form of support you could possibly need." Then Kwon delivered the words that instantly changed Joo-Heon's expression. "Work for me." Joo-Heon's eyes turned cold. In the very next second, his sword cut across Kwon's neck. Blood immediately sprayed into the air. Kwon's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't even realized what had happened. Hyun and the others stood frozen. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. But Joo-Heon remained completely calm as Kwon's blood continued pouring from his neck.